Buddy, I'll now call the public hearing of May 9th, 2023 to order. This meeting is convened by electronic means, and as such, council members may participate in person or by electronic means. For council members participating tonight by electronic means, please ensure your video is turned on and let the clerk know if you leave the meeting for the purposes of confirming quorum. Council members are reminded that in accordance with section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. If council members attending by electronic means lose their connection during any portion of the meeting, we will recess the meeting until the connection is restored. And if council members lose their connection during the voting process, staff will get you back online quickly while we suspend the voting process. And the contact information has been circulated to you via email. Members of the public can view the proceedings via the live stream and on YouTube, which will be tweeted out at Van City Clerk on Twitter. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. We thank them for having cared for this land and look forward to working with them in partnership as we continue to build this great city together. In case of an emergency where we need to evacuate the building, for those here at City Hall this evening, I'd like to direct your attention to the exits. There are 2 exits beyond the glass doors and to the left. If these exits are obstructed, please direct your attention to the 4 exits here in the chamber. And please use the stairs and not the elevator. I'd also like to highlight that there is a defibrillator located at the end of the hallway outside of the council chamber. I would also like to take a moment to recognize the immense contributions of the City of Vancouver staff who work hard every day to help make our city an incredible place to live, work, and play. Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Mayor Sim is on a leave of absence for civic business. Councillor Carr. Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Dominato. Councillor Bly is on a leave of absence for personal reasons. Councillor Boyle.
Present.
Councillor Fry. Councillor Montague. Councillor Klassen.
Present.
Councillor Meisner in the chair. Councillor Joe.
Present.
You have quorum, Acting Mayor Meisner.
Clerk, I think the chair's microphone is off.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I'll just go back through that quickly. Before I begin, I have some announcements. The public may participate in person, by phone, or by submitting written comments to Mayor and Council. Just a reminder, speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Speakers should also state whether they are in support or opposed to the recommendations and if they are a resident of Vancouver. Speakers may only speak once and should follow along on Twitter at Van City Clerk for updates on the progress of the meeting so they don't miss their turn to speak. Any comments on agenda items can be submitted in writing through our online Mayor and Council feedback web form, and this link will also be tweeted out on Van City Clerk. Those speaking on behalf of 4 or more persons or groups, including the speaker, will have 8 minutes to speak, and only if those represented are also on the line or in person, and must not be individual speakers themselves. I also would like to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including the utmost respect for all genders. I would like to remind Council that when addressing speakers and staff, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and will instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, and title. A reminder that Council's role at a public hearing is to be a quasi-judicial body, which means Council is only to consider the merits of the rezoning application or heritage designation. Council members may ask clarifying questions from speakers, including the applicant, or technical advice from staff, but should save debate for after the close of the speakers list. After hearing from speakers, Council may 1. Approve the application in principle, 2. Refuse the application, Or 3, refer the application to staff for further consideration. Item 1 is city-initiated zoning changes for townhouses and row houses in the Cambie corridor. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 1? Okay, the clerk will now read the application and the summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by the General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability to rezone 220 parcels from RS1 and RT1 to the RM8A or RM8AN zones for specified sites in the Cambie Corridor Plan area. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendations. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing. 1 piece of correspondence in support, 3 pieces of correspondence in opposition, and 2 pieces of correspondence regarding other aspects related to the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Okay, thank you. So this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445#, before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers who are in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. And there will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added at the end of the registered speakers list. So tonight we have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Good evening. Please go ahead. Okay, we're just going to need our council members who are joining us virtually tonight, if you could please turn your video on as we've lost quorum. Okay, we have quorum again, so we'll get going. Good evening, and please begin your presentation.
Thank you and good evening. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Teen. I'm the Senior Rezoning Planner here with the staff team to present tonight on an initiative for city-initiated rezoning to streamline the delivery of townhouses and row houses in the Cambie corridor. So we speak about the missing middle and right supply quite a bit. In today's context, we're referring to 3-story ground-oriented, family-oriented row houses and townhouses that are 3 stories, specifically in the Cambie corridor. This makes it possible for households and families to live and own in the city. Our recommendation tonight is whereby the Director of Planning rezones 220 parcels simultaneously from an RS1 or an RT1 zone to the RM8A or RM8AN zone, which effectively streamlines the delivery of townhouses in the Cambie corridor. This creates efficiency, eliminating the need for each individual lot to come forward for rezoning. It also simplifies our development process, where applicants can skip rezoning altogether and apply directly for a development permit. It also expedites the delivery of family-oriented, ground-oriented housing. To explain how we arrived at tonight's recommendation, here's the agenda. First, I'll walk you through the background and the context, followed by staff analysis, reminding council then of our recommendation and explaining our engagement efforts and the benefits associated. There's been a lot of council direction in the last 6 years to lead us to where we are today. First, I'll start with the Housing Vancouver strategy that expands housing diversity across a housing continuum, complete with targets for townhouses and ground-oriented units. The Cambie plan was approved the next year, proposing new housing forms on a block-by-block basis. Townhouses were anticipated in transition areas with 1,100 lots, with the potential to deliver up to 8,200 new townhouse units. That year, we also simplified our regulations by creating an off-the-shelf RM8A or RM8AN zone, with guidelines that are specific to townhouses in Cambie. The Utilities Servicing Plan also recognized that new growth possibly meant new sewer upgrades and new pipes where needed. Staff were directed at that time to undertake more modeling to better understand where infrastructure was required and where it was not. in order to support new residents. More recently, Council's familiar with the Vancouver Plan, which identified quick start actions for missing middle and the right supply, as well as to simplify our regulations in building complete communities. So that brings us to tonight's recommendation, which follows the expectation of these directions. Council approved a new townhouse zone in 2018 with guidelines so applicants have predictability and clarity for what can be built in the corridor. This zone has been used for townhouse rezoning since 2018. Here we have established maximums for height as well as density at 3 stories or 37.5 feet, along with a maximum floor space ratio of 1.2. There's a built-in family housing requirement into the zone, as well as a range of unit sizes that allow for affordability and for choice. We also removed protracted site-by-site negotiations for additional density and instead replaced it with a fixed-rate density bonus. In fact, today, since 2018, the townhouse zone is one of our most popular citywide, with Council having approved 60 townhouse applications and some coming in directly through DP, which totals about 625 that have been either secured, under construction, or completed. So how did we get here? This map shows the townhouse eligible areas for all 1,100 lots in Cambie through the various phases. Shown in gray, we have phase 1, which is from 2018, where the city rezoned 167 lots to the RM8A zone, the new townhouse zone. Sewer improvements were not required here, and owners could therefore proceed directly to a development permit process. Zones were changed, and townhouses were added as a permitted use. In orange, we have the future phases at that time that needed more analysis to determine which sites triggered sewer improvements and which did not. Until then, an interim measure was put into place where owners could apply for a simplified rezoning, allowing site-specific analysis to understand if utility upgrades were needed. So to recap, we have 1,100 lots identified for townhouses in the Cambie corridor. In phase 1, shown in gray, the city-initiated rezoning totaled 167 lots. Then private applicants came forward with their own rezonings between 2018 and 2023 for 110 lots. And so that brings us tonight to today's recommendation, specifically focused squarely on phase 2 in blue. So recent sewer modeling analysis revealed that these 222 lots do not require upgrades and are therefore eligible for city-initiated rezoning. Townhouses would be a permitted use, and the rezoning step can therefore be eliminated, and applicants can move right to a DP, development permit. The remaining orange parcels represent 579 lots, or what we call future phase 3. These lots are being actively assessed to determine if sewer improvements are needed, and we anticipate reporting back to Council in Q1 of 2024. We held both broad and specific public notification. Staff updated our Cambie Corridor Plan website, informing the community of the proposed changes. We also were intentional to have focused communication for the owners and the tenants of the affected properties specifically. We also reached out to the Riley Park South Cambie Advisory Group to inform them. Generally, comments from the public were quite minimal, mainly people seeking clarification on redevelopment potential and whether their site was in or out of the proposed changes. We also held outreach with industry stakeholders, including UDI and BC Assessment, who expressed quite positive support for the initiative. There are numerous benefits associated with city rezoning. The zoning changes eliminate up to 12 months of a rezoning process, saving staff time and deleting applicant fees to streamline missing middle housing. Importantly, it frees up Council's capacity to focus on other priorities. And we've also established a fixed rate density bonus, which simplifies the calculations. To conclude, we're asking Council tonight to approve rezoning of 220 parcels, taking advantage of an existing zone. This simplifies the process and it expedites the delivery of missing middle housing. That concludes the presentation, and the full complement of the staff team are available tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now hear from speakers, the public. And our first speaker is speaker number 1, Alan McIver, who I believe should be on the phone. We have Alan on the phone? We're just going to check. Are you Alan McIver?
I am.
Oh, you're here in person. Okay, even better. So please come up to the podium, Alan. Just actually the other podium.
Right here? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, thanks. And you have up to 5 minutes, so please go ahead.
Okay, yes, my name is Alan McIver. I'm a resident homeowner at 936 West 37th Avenue, and received the notice of public hearing for the rezoning, which affects the block that we live on, which is 800 and 900 West 37th and 38th Avenue. And there's a block of 10 houses at the east end of these avenues that is listed as part of the rezoning process. Anyway, I think this policy is a little bit unfair, and to the homeowners who are maybe close by the proposed rezoning areas, but not quite there, and that applies to myself and my wife. In that. It is really going to devalue our property as compared to the others, because any developer that comes in and might want to buy our property is going to be faced with having to upgrade all of the sewer system, at least on that block, if not a lot more. So, in my opinion, Either the developers that want to develop the east end of the property should pay for development of a lot more than that, or the city should take responsibility for upgrading sewer and water systems. I think if they really want to get the developers going on these properties, it might be a better idea for the city to take the lead on these things. And because right now, with this plan, I think it's quite discriminatory and unfair. Another comment I'd like to make about the particular block that we live on, it's kind of an orphan block in that it's bounded on Oak Meadows Park. On the north side, it's bounded by the transit lines, and presently proposed to redevelop by Grosvenor Properties. On the east side is the French schools, and on the west side is Oak Street. So this block, in my opinion, would be a good candidate for upgrading to even higher density housing, but do the entire block, not just half of it. Okay, I think that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thanks, Alan, and thanks for coming in tonight. See no questions. We'll go to speaker number 2, Nathan Davidovich, pardon me, on the phone. Do we have Nathan on the phone?
Speaker number 2 is not on the phone.
Okay, thank you. We'll come back to them. Speaker number 3 is withdrawn. Speaker number 4, Ping Ki Suen.
Yeah, he's
Okay, thanks, Alan. Good evening, Ping. Hi. If you can approach the podium there and go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. My name is Ping Soon. I'm the homeowner at 950 West 37th Avenue. The reason I'm here today is to give some comments on the rezoning proposal. Number one, I recall when the workshops were held to present the Campy Corridor development proposal a few years ago, we were told that the development process will be working from the main arteries inward into the side street area. In other words, the area along Cambie Street and Oak Street will be developed first and gradually working into the side street like Heather Street, Willow Street, etc. But now this proposal is actually working the other way around. So I don't know what the justification is. And number two, from all the documents I looked at, it seems to me that the only reason why you're proposing to do the rezoning half a block instead of the whole block is that that half block has sewage facility that does not require upgrading. And I found it quite difficult to believe that in the same block you have different sewage facilities on one side of the block and compared to the other side of the block. So I just want you to take a look and see whether that is the case or not. And number three, by rezoning only half a block, like Alan's, my neighbor, said before, you are distorting the market. You're distorting the free market because you are making the eastern block more desirable as far as developers are concerned. And I think that's quite it's arbitrary and unfair. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for coming in tonight. Seeing no questions, we'll go back to speaker number 2 to see if they're on the phone. Nathan Davidowitz. Do we have Nathan on the phone?
Not on the line.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll now do the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who would like to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream as well. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. And speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Clerk, can I confirm if there are any additional speakers on the line?
There are no additional speakers.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to call a third time for any additional speakers. So this is the third and final call. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. Okay, we're now going to take a 5-minute recess to see if any calls have been received. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. So we do have two new speakers on the line, as well as a speaker we missed previously. So first speaker is Naomi Steinberg. Do we have Naomi on the line?
Chair, the speaker is not on the line.
Okay, thank you. Speaker Vicky Pascal or Pascual. Do we have Vicky on the line?
Hello.
Hi, Vicky.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So you have up to 5
Well, thank
minutes.
you very much. Yes, okay, I'm starting now. Thank you. First of all, I want to say I agree with rezoning to improve housing, but we need to optimize the land usage, I think, from my opinion, and specifically apartment towers like the Oak Ridge site now has a lot now that it has the new towers, it allows for proximity for use. It's close to the Canby Street, Oak, Granville, downtown bus, the SkyTrain to downtown. Any airport staff can find a way to the airport via the Canby Corridor SkyTrain. And the students, UBC, Langara, it allows for shopping not far from their doorstep. More people can be located in the area because if you look later, say, give us 20 years from now, people might say, that we could maybe have it had provided for more people, and that you could do through the not through that, but through the apartments. If you take a look at if you take a look when you cross to Costco, you'll find that they're sprouting out apartments as opposed to just doing row housing, and they have less room than we do. So I like to say that it would also have save on car usage costs for people who are needing to take their cars to work, and they save on gas. We would have cleaner air because they're not using as many cars. Row housing has its place, but I think it's too rich to say for families. But in a lower, more casual way, I think we have the apartments. Apartment dwellers may find it enormously convenient to be close to Oak Ridge, amenities both for transportation and shopping, food shopping and otherwise, so to optimize the land to serve more people, and it could limit car use and pollution. As an example, as I mentioned to you about Richmond, and in summary, I'd like to say I agree with modifying the zoning, but feel that allowing apartments would be a more optimal use of the land and the surrounding amenities, as I mentioned in the previous commentary. Yes, I'm supportive of rezoning, but not in free zoning for family row housing. Thank you. I think that would be it.
Okay.
Yes, we'll have a house in the area. Thank you.
Thanks for calling in, Vicky. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good
Thanks
night.
so much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, we'll now go to Nathan Davidowitz. Do we have Nathan on the line?
Hello.
Hi, is that Nathan?
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I know you were trying to get a hold of me earlier, and I was in a bad spot, and I.
That's okay, Nathan. Don't worry. You can go right into it. You got up to 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Earlier today, the director of planning gave a very good report about the whole housing problem in the city, and there were some good other speakers as well that asked some good questions. However, the Canby Corridor plan is a disaster. Again, blame the former Visions councils. They are the ones that brought this in, and they are the one that the staff is following still their orders. This is a new council, and you can make changes that make sense. there are many missed opportunities and bad urban form that will be noticed by anybody looking at the main streets. Some streets have brand new mid-rise apartment when across the street there are tall 30 or 40-story high-rises. That's not a good way to build a city. Many of the proposed lots, I think there's 220 lots altogether, are less than 1 kilometer from Langara or Oak Ridge the stations. It doesn't make any sense to rezone these lots that are so close to the stations to market townhouses. We need affordable rental apartments around all stations. The BC government has budgeted funding to buy land, and the city should ask the BC government to buy all available properties within 1 kilometer of all stations. Why continue the bad mistakes that have been made over the last 40 years or so when we can change a path and I don't know, as I said, why the planning department keeps sticking by this bad Canby corridor plan. All the planners who worked on this plan are not even working anymore for the city. And so rewrite the plan and check and see where the properties are. If there are anything close to the stations, it shouldn't be, market housing. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hey, thanks, Nathan, for calling in. Enjoy your evening. Okay, we do potentially have a speaker on the line. We'll just check on that. Yeah.
Hello, speaker with the last four digits 2265. Did you want to speak to item 1?
I'm not sure to take that as a no or a yes. Oh, we're just going to check. Okay, thanks.
There are no further speakers on the line.
No further speakers? Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing there are no additional speakers, speakers list is now closed for this item. And seeing that as there are no, little or no comments received after 5 p.m., I'll now close the receipt of public comments. Okay, does staff have any closing comments?
We don't, thank you.
Okay, thanks. And I see Councillor Dominato has questions for staff, so please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure if this question's relevant or not, so you can certainly let me know. Is in the past, we've talked to council about the Canby corridor and the phases of rezonings or zoning, particularly for townhouse developments. But as part of the entire Canby corridor discussion, there's been the subject of a lack of amenities in that area, particularly, retail, commercial, and that being embedded in developments. We've talked about grocery stores as just an example. I'm just curious if you could comment on that in the context of this decision this evening. And I understand the thrust of, simplifying things to support townhome developments and townhouses. But if you could just comment on that piece around the amenities.
Don. Yeah. Thanks for that question. Sure. I think in the context of this evening, where the Canby corridor RM8A AN zone is only permitting row houses or townhouses, so there aren't any amenities being proposed on site. In terms of amenities throughout the corridor, we certainly see opportunities for new development through mixed-use developments. There's also quite specific direction in the plan for delivering specific on-site amenities. So we're capturing on-site amenities throughout the corridor. We're also capturing a lot of cash in terms of CAC that's being delivered through CACs. For the townhouse specifically, we've applied a density bonus zone. So anything above 0.75 FSR to 1.2, we would extract that cash, and that would go towards funding amenities in the Candy Plan through the public benefit strategy. So I think there's probably a balance in terms of what we can deliver through the townhouses and then what other areas in the plan allow for in terms of redevelopment.
Okay, thank you. And just one more question. Just on the subject of, I think it's our first speaker, Alan McIver, who's obviously a resident of this area, was commenting around concerns about devaluation of land as a result of this, and that seemed counterintuitive to me in this context of some of what we've seen in the past. So can you just comment on how you sort of understood that question and comment and what that might mean in reality going forward with this proposal if it's supported by council?
Yeah, I don't know if I could comment on
Just made in general terms. even.
evaluation. Maybe I'll pass that over to Chris,
Yeah,
senior
you.
planner.
Good evening, Council. Chris Clibben, Citywide and Regional Planning. I think the gentleman who was speaking on behalf of his half of the block versus the other half of the block. His half of the block was not in the pre-zoning area, but was still eligible to rezone to townhouse, versus the other side of the block, which was being pre-zoned to townhouse. Our analysis shows that the land values between those sites in the rezoning area versus those being pre-zoned are very similar. What the pre-zoning offers is simplicity and efficiencies for property developers who want to assemble land and bring something forward and get it through City Council for approval and then for eventual construction. But in terms of a land value difference, we don't see any notable difference looking at property values.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. And basically what I'm hearing is that, the essence of this is really being able to enable development and housing more quickly by removing some of the regulatory red tape of having to go through a distinct rezoning. So, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up questioning along the same lines regarding the speakers. The first speaker noted that, or he said that he's worried he's going to have to pay for upgrading sewers and water in his block, in his half of the block, whereas the other half is going to get, it's going to get upgraded and the individuals afterwards, I guess, are not going to have to pay. But anyway, it was discriminatory is what he said. I wonder if you could just respond to that.
Thanks, Councillor, for the question. Donnie Wong with Engineering. The parcels that have been put forward are directly benefiting from infrastructure upgrades that we've either made over the last 2-3 years or have planned in the current capital plan to be constructed. So we will be building kind of additional capacity, and we're looking for additional opportunities to do pre-zoning for additional townhouse parcels.
So is it not accurate that he's going to have to pay for sewer upgrades and others won't? I mean, he used the term discriminatory, so I wonder if you could just address that issue.
So it is likely that that portion of his block and the parcels on that block will have local service upgrades, so local service pipe upgrades tied to the redevelopment of those sites to townhomes. Now, we, over the course of the remainder of this year, we're continuing to do more analysis in this area, particularly around the townhouse parcels, and we expect to bring forward a new batch of parcels for pre-zoning in early 2024.
Might include the sort of half blocks or whatever that aren't included here.
Right. So any parcels that we deem that have capacity to service, so whether it's potable water, firefighting, or sewer capacity, we would be nominating those and bringing those forward to council to consider for city-initiated rezoning.
Okay. I see the Director of Planning has maybe got another comment. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted Chris to also expand on that a little bit. Chris, will you explain the sewer upgrades and the timing?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So just building on Chris Clibben, Planning Department, just building on Mr. Wong's point. Yes, the gentleman that was here would be subject, if decided to proceed currently, be subject to a rezoning with potential local servicing upgrades. It is possible, based on the timing of the rezoning, that we could, during the rezoning application phase, come forward with some DCL funding or some utilities DCL funding or the sewer capacity studies could be completed in that time. And that point, we would actually revisit the requirement for local service upgrade. So that's the first point I wanted to make. Second point is, in the event that the gentleman did proceed with a rezoning with a local servicing condition and the city was not being able to come forward with a UDCL funding or remove the sewer condition, there is a program called Latecomer Program, which is important to folks who are developing that are subject to sewer conditions. It's a way to equitably share the costs that the front-ending developer is subject to paying upgrades with subsequent development. So, so there'd be a benefiting area, and over a 10-year period, developments that are subject to sewer conditions can get reimbursed from other future developers within the benefiting area over a 10-year period. So no one development is burdened with the full cost of an off-site sewer condition that's not covered through utilities development cost levies, if that makes sense to you. It's complicated, but
No, that totally makes sense, and I think that's really great information to put on the public record. I think that completely, in my mind, answers the concern that the individual had. So thanks, I'm grateful for that information. That's it for me. And
Thanks.
there's no one else on I'll move the recommendations.
Chair, this is Councillor Boyle. I'm just hoping I can be added to the question queue before we move the
I can add you
recommendations.
to
Sorry.
the queue. Councillor Boyle, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to follow up with a couple quick questions. And the first is, I'm wondering if the sewer capacity in this among these sites would actually allow for adding more density than just townhomes. If the sewer and utility capacity here would allow us to build mid-rise apartments, say.
Thanks for the question, Councillor. And I think that, so for these areas that Council has approved rezoning policy to townhomes, that was part of the entire Canby Corridor plan. And now, so the building forms and the densities were actually vetted and validated through quite an extensive neighborhood consultation process. So if there were, some questions and desires to change the density or the building types, I believe that would open up the entire plan again for review. Maybe I could pass a question on to planning colleagues.
I think the answer to that is we didn't model a higher density. We can look at that in future phases, but right now we didn't model a higher density for these particular sewer upgrades. But if council directs staff to undertake that work, we certainly can.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then my other question is, will we be getting any recommendations back, following up on Councillor Dominato's question, for any sort of ground floor retail in the area? I know we hear and see in what's being built already that there were some gaps in the Canby Corridor plan, particularly around affordability, but also around the kind of ground floor retail that would make the neighborhood more walkable and less car dependent. So I know the plan is done, but we continue to make land use changes, and so I'm wondering if that's a recommendation we might see into the future, or if that would require additional council direction as well.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Kirsten Baylor, Long Range Planning. So the Canby Corridor plan does enable and actually require ground floor commercial in many parts of the corridor, but there are some gaps, and we have been hearing that from residents as well. Over time, through the implementation of Vancouver plan, we would be looking at those existing gaps to make sure that we achieve the complete communities in our future neighborhood centers. So we also would be looking at our existing community plans to see where the gaps are and come back to council with policy updates.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. That's all my questions, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks. I would like to follow up on that question and just ask staff if you could expand on the last answer in terms of the Canby Corridor Plan does provide for ground level retail in some areas. And can you be more specific? Because I live in this area and it is a food desert. And there's nothing, for example, from King Edward all the way to 37th, at best, perhaps one, and there's nothing along 41st. There's one with limited hours. So where is it contemplated?
Yeah. So currently, absolutely, the
Is
big
it,
gap.
is it the things that are unbuilt right now, like Oak Ridge?
Well, there are some, yes, absolutely, in Oak Ridge along 41st and in Canby closer to 41st. So south of 37th is more ground floor commercial that's coming through future development. So that's where the plan requires ground floor commercial. We have some other areas, for example, on Heather Street, where we have a ground floor commercial requirement and also block for choice of use. So there are different parts in the corridor, but one of the big gaps, and that the one you've just been referring to, is along Canby between King Ed and 37th. So those would be, that would be one of those areas that we would be identifying as a gap to see if we can get more commercial in on the ground floor for future development.
So how would we do that since it's pretty much all built? Would you be looking at side streets? Would you be looking at taking the corner store strategy on some of the side streets? Like where would that happen?
I guess it'll depend on the situation, how many blocks are left. So when we have situations where we really have no blocks left on the arterials, we would be looking at areas that wrap the corner onto the side streets. We actually already have policy in the plan on some of our residential side streets for ground floor commercial, again on Heather and 42nd. So those are similar approaches that we could be taking to update our existing community plans where we have the gaps. So it'll depend on how many development sites are left on the arterials.
Okay, so the answer is that there won't be because there aren't any. They're pretty much all built.
If they're
Like,
all
for
built,
example,
then
this
we
rent-
would be looking at other
so
opportunities in the area.
For example, the rental that's being built now at King Edward and Canby,
Mhm.
does that include ground floor retail?
Is it on the south side of?
It's
King
on
Edward?
the southeast corner.
Yeah, I believe then it wouldn't. No.
It does not.
Yeah, because the plan doesn't require it on the south side of King Ed. Yes. So those are the areas where we would have to look at opportunities that are not right on the arterial, where we would be looking at the residential streets.
Okay, and how and when will we be doing that?
It'll be done through Vancouver Plan implementation. So I don't think we have a firm timeline for that particular piece of work, but
Which
it's
will also
definitely
be
on the to-do list.
after, just sequencing this in my head, the majority, by the time the Vancouver plan is completed at the end of this term, a lot of this expediting of zoning of these townhouses will be complete by then also. The large part, would it not?
The pre-zoning would be complete, and it would be for purely residential. That's correct on these particular blocks, but there are certainly other opportunities within the corridor where we could be bringing in a policy change, but not on these particular blocks.
I guess I'm just trying to have us be a bit honest about it, that if we're pre-zoning these areas, they will be pre-zoned. People will probably move forward with applications into our plans, so that is probably likely not the area where we're going to get it. I appreciate the optimism, but realistically, I can't see how it's already built and it's going to be pre-zoned. And that's going to happen several years in advance, the Vancouver plan being finished, how that would suddenly miraculously turn into zoning. So it's going to only be south of basically 37th or around the larger sites on 42nd, Oak Ridge, Transit Lands, things like the Heatherlands. Is that what we could expect more realistically?
Realistically, yes, plus those areas where we still have development sites left. And you live in the area, you know there aren't that many left on the arterials. So we would be looking at other opportunities, yeah. But there will be some areas where we're going to see mostly residential development because that's already happening.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. What I hear you saying is no, we don't have opportunities in those areas.
That's not the answer. I think the answer would be that we'll be looking for opportunities wherever we can find them.
Probably what we should be. We're clearly not ready to respond to the question tonight. Why don't you let us take this back and do a little bit of analysis and bring back a little memo or report for council. I hear your concern and we want to be responsive to it, but I want to do some analysis before we try to just answer off the cuff. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fair. Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you both. Clerk, can we just check if we've received any additional comments since the close of public comments?
No.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Carr, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Fry, thank you. Okay, is there any debate? Councillor Carr.
Yeah, so I probably watched this plan unfold more than any of the others of you because I've been on council since close to the beginning of the implementation of the Canby Corridor Plan. And what I really understood from that beginning was like there was going to be a lot of density landing on it because it was a major plan. It was the 2010 Games facilitated the building of this of the subway and the Canada Line, and that really became the basis for very dense development at major arterials, as we see that in Oak Ridge. And there was still a lot of density that got landed up and down that corridor, especially. I mean, to some degree, people thought it was quite sad. There were some older, very affordable apartment blocks that were taken down for the development of newer, largely strata in major parts of that plan, and then with the other density varying depending on the arterial or the access to arterials and the subway further back. I've been in meetings where residents have argued for higher density, and lots of times we don't necessarily hear that at council, but they did, way back when in some certain locations, and staff responded, and higher density was included in some of the peripheral zones around the Oak Ridge area. So I think there's been iterations and changes. What I see here is we've had many of these sorry, I might have those numbers wrong. But anyway, we've seen a lot of these developments come forward, and they have very few public respondents. They seem to be very upset in terms of the process, and I'm seeing that bringing to a public hearing process replaced by this rezoning, which will make it automatic for those to go forward. So that's got to save staff time, it's got to save council's time, it's got to save the public's time and the developer's plan in terms of having pre-zoned sites. So that's why I'm supportive of this moving forward.
Councillor Carr. Councillor Klassen.
Thanks, everybody. Just noting that this has been a great presentation, and I'll be very brief. I just want to say that I'm truly excited about the building form that we're talking about here, the row houses, the townhouses. This is an area that I think Vancouver has been aspiring to, but hasn't quite got to yet. And I know that I've heard a lot that people love this type of housing. And the fact that we're doing all this work to make it happen is, I think, really exciting. I was recently in the Edmonds neighborhood of Burnaby, and there are row houses and townhouses as far as the eye can see there. And I think it's a very successful community there. I know that one of my favorite areas in the town are the stacked townhouses on Commercial Street around, I think, 22nd Avenue, just in the sort of Cedar Cottage neighborhood. So again, hats off for staff for moving this along. And I do think that the point about having some kind of small retail, coffee shops, things where places to gather is something that I know staff is going to take away. There are some communities that have those things. Certainly the ones in Commercial Street have that. They're just great additions for building neighborhood and creating an exciting dynamic in those communities. So thank you very much, and look forward to seeing this finally realized.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Klassen. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. I also am very happy to support this, happy to see more townhomes get built more quickly. I will say two things, and one is I have heard many times that the utility capacity is our barrier in many neighborhoods to building mid-rise apartments and more affordable forms of housing. And one of the major gaps in the Canby Corridor plan is certainly affordability. This is not a neighborhood that will have many middle or low income residents, and I think that's a loss for the neighborhood. And so I would like to see us looking here and elsewhere, particularly where we're looking at utility capacity, at how that can be one opportunity to be building a broader and more affordable range of options. And I'm glad to see us making a large area rezoning like this rather than individual projects, and would love to see something similar for mixed income and mid-rise apartments as an approach. And the last thing I'll say, which a number of my colleagues have also mentioned, is that we know that we need more ground floor retail, and particularly an anchor grocery store, but all sorts of ground floor retail to make this neighborhood more complete and walkable. And so it's of course too bad that wasn't included in the original plan passed a couple councils ago, but hope that as we continue to make changes, we can see those enabled and streamlined to make them easier as well. But on the kind of main subject today, very happy to see us making a broad zoning change that makes townhomes and row homes easier to build here.
Thanks, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, very quickly. I do think it's good for us to rezone and move away from hearing time and expediting housing. We heard today how many projects we have and sort of the backlog that we have at the broader council meeting today in discussion. So if we can rededicate public hearing time to some of the larger projects, and that makes a lot of sense to me for a forum that is well loved and appreciated. And I think that the row home townhome concept is great. A lot of them are limited to 3.5 stories. I actually think they could be 4, because you could do 2 sort of stacked units of 2 floors each. And provide some additional flexibility there, or a row of apartments in a townhome. But I think that they're incredibly popular. People do love the ground floor opportunity. It's nice to see multiple families living. In some cases, you see 1 or 2 lots that's now housing 25 families. And this is pretty commonplace in a lot of other places in the world. I was born in the UK, and that is what I grew up in. My first memories of houses were those row homes. That was very traditional building form, and I think Vancouver is behind and is just catching up to that. So I'm happy to support it. I do wish, however, that we take away, and I appreciate staff have heard the feedback around a lack of the amenities, because it is difficult sometimes to try and get groceries and haul them all on transit. And you have a neighborhood with great parks, access to transit and that, but if you need to pick things up, there is nowhere to get a loaf of bread or milk in the neighborhood. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kirby-Young. Okay, see no one else on the list to speak. Just a reminder to any council member participating virtually whose video is disabled, you'll be marked absent for the vote pursuant to section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw. And I'm now going to call the vote. Clerk, if you could please take us to the voting screen, and council, if you could please register your vote on the voting panel. Okay, and that passes unanimously. We'll now go to item 2, recalibration of density bonus contributions. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 2? Okay, the clerk will now read the application and the summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by the General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability to adopt the recalibration of 4 density bonus contribution rates becoming effective September 30th, 2023. Also to adopt an exemption for secured market rental development in the RM10N district schedule, and an expanded definition of amenity and affordable housing shares across all density bonus zones effective upon enactment. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendations. No correspondence has been received on this application since it was referred to public hearing.
Okay, thank you. So this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. Tonight we have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application, but I just wanted to note that we had 2 speakers for this item, but they both withdrew. So if anyone, I'm looking for a motion specifically to waive the presentation and ask that it be circulated to council and posted on the website. By Councillor Klassen.
Yeah, move to waive the presentation from staff.
And also, and circulate it to council and post it on the website?
Yes, thank you.
Great. And seconded by Councillor Carr. All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
Any opposed say nay. Okay. Carries unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, staff, for preparing to speak. Okay. So we will now hear from the public. And we have all registered speakers have withdrawn. Okay. Okay, so this is the second call for speakers. If there's any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. And speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Clerk, could you confirm if there's any additional speakers on the line?
There are no additional speakers.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is the third and final call. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. And any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. We'll take a 5-minute recess to see if any phone calls come in. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back. We'll just quickly check and see if there's any speakers on the line. No speakers on the line. Okay, thank you. So seeing there's no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And seeing there are little or no comments received after 5 p.m., I'll now close the receipt of public comments. Do staff have any closing comments?
Yes, staff will note that there is a yellow memo attached to this agenda item that includes a council recommendation to correct a typo in Appendix A, the zoning and development bylaw amendments of the report to change any references of RM9A/N. So that reads, removing the slash to read RM9AN, along with the recommendations in the report. No further comments.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Does council have any questions for staff? Councillor Carr.
Actually, staff answered my question. I noticed that we did have a yellow memo, so if there are no other questions, though, I'd be happy to move the recommendations with the yellow memo.
Okay, I just quickly want to check if we had any additional comments since the close of public comments.
No comments have been received.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Carr moved the recommendation. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Montague. Okay, is there any debate? Okay, I don't see anyone on the queue for debate. So just a reminder to any council member participating virtually whose video is disabled, you'll be marked absent for the vote pursuant to section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw. And I'm now going to call the vote. Clerk, if you could please take us to the voting screen, and council, if you could please register your vote on the voting panel. Just waiting for a few more votes.
Chair, this is Councillor Boyle. If
Yes,
I can
hi.
have a vote assist in favor, that would be great.
Will do, no problem.
Thanks.
Okay, that passes unanimously. So we'll now go to item 3, CD1 rezoning 855 to 865 West 10th Avenue. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 3? Okay, seeing none, the clerk will now read the application and the summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by W.T. Leung Architects to rezone 855-865 West 10th Avenue from CD1 137 District to a new CD1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 12-story commercial and office building. A building height of 46.4 meters and a floor space ratio of 6.17 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendations. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing, 2 pieces of correspondence in support. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Okay, thank you. So this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. And there will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added at the end of the registered speakers list. We do have staff here from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability to present the application, but seeing that there are no speakers, I'm wondering if I can get a motion from the floor to waive the presentation. Councillor Montague?
Motion to waive the presentation since no speakers.
Okay, can we actually, just correction, can we get a motion to waive the presentation, circulate to council and post it on the website specifically?
Motion.
Thank you, Councillor Montague. Can I get a seconder, please?
Seconder, Lenny.
Oh, lots of seconders. We'll go with Councillor Carr. So all those in favor say yay.
Yay.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, that carries. Thank you very much. So we will waive the presentation, circulate to council, and post it on the website. Okay, is the applicant team here to speak to the application? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Wing Leung. I'm the architect making the application on behalf of our clients, that's before you this evening. And we've read the staff report. We're comfortable with the conditions outlined in the appendix, and we're comfortable with being able to fill them. I'm here to answer any questions that council may have on the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in tonight. Are there any questions from council to staff, or sorry, to the applicant, noting this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? Okay, seeing no questions and no registered speakers, we will do a second call for speakers. So if there's any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers who are in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Clerk, could you please confirm if there are any additional speakers on the line?
There are no speakers on the line.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll now do the third and final call. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. And we'll take a 5-minute recess to see if any calls come in on the item. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, we're back. We'll just check any speakers on the line.
There's no new callers on the line.
Okay, thank you. So seeing there's no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And seeing there are no little or no comments received after 5 p.m., I'll now close the receipt of public comments. Okay, does the applicant have any closing comments? Okay, thank you. Do staff have any closing comments? Okay. And does council have any questions to staff? No? Okay. Clerk, did we receive any additional comments since the close of public comments?
No comments were received.
Thank you. Okay, well, council will now make its decision on the application. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Montague, seconded by Councillor Dominato. Okay, is there any debate? Seeing none. Councillor Carr, yeah, please go ahead.
Not really a debate issue, but I'm not sure if I heard you. I don't think you said that you've closed the receipt of public comment. And I think it's important to do that.
I believe I did.
You just said, is there any more?
I thought I said, seeing as there are little to no comments received after 5 p.m., I'll now close the receipt of public comments. It's okay.
Me that's falling asleep.
Don't worry. It's good to clarify. So just to reconfirm that, we've closed the receipt of public comments, and we will now, so no debate, and I'll now call the vote. So Clerk, if you could please take us to the voting screen, and Council, if you could please register your vote on the voting panel. Okay, that passes unanimously. We'll now go to item 4. CD1 rezoning 208 East 54th Avenue, 7018 to 7078 Main Street, and 211 East 55th Avenue. Does any council member wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 4? Not seeing any. The clerk will now read the application and the summary of correspondence received. We'll just need to just take a brief pause here. Please go ahead.
This is an application by Matthew Cheng Architects to rezone 208 East 54th Avenue, 7018 to 7078 Main Street, and 211 East 55th Avenue from RT2 Residential to CD1 Comprehensive Development District, to permit the development of 2 6-story mixed-use residential buildings containing 131 secured market rental units and ground floor commercial space. A building height of 22 meters and a floor space ratio of 3.62 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendations. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing. 18 pieces of correspondence in support and 2 pieces of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Okay, thank you very much. This is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Okay, please go ahead.
Good evening, Council. My name is Carly Rosenblatt, rezoning planner for this application, which proposes to rezone a site at 208 East 54th Avenue, 7018 to 7078 Main Street, and 211 East 55th Avenue under the Affordable Housing Choices Interim Rezoning Policy. Oops. The subject site, shown in red, is a full block on Main Street made up of 8 lots between East 54th and East 55th Avenue. The lots are zoned RT2 residential and currently developed with 8 detached houses. Surrounding sites are zoned RT2 or RS1 and developed with detached houses. South of the site is zoned C1, which permits small-scale commercial use. The site is approximately 2,680 square meters in size, and there are 9 secondary rental units on site. However, none of the tenants qualify for tenant relocation under the city's tenant relocation policy. The site is located in the Sunset neighborhood, which contains a variety of neighborhood amenities. From the map, you can see parks and the Sunset Community Center. There are also 8 childcare facilities within 1 kilometer of the site and 5 schools in close proximity. In addition, there are multiple shopping districts, bicycle routes, and transit routes nearby the subject site. The Housing Vancouver strategy sets a target of 20,000 new market rental housing units across the city to help address Vancouver's historically low rental vacancy rates. This rezoning is being considered under the Affordable Housing Choices Interim Rezoning Policy, AHC, which was approved in 2012. In December 2021, Council approved the Secured Rental Policy, SRP, which consolidates opportunities for rezoning for secured rental housing previously contained in the AHC policy and the previous Rental 100 policy. For this site, the SRP would allow up to 6 stories on arterials, provided 20% of the residential floor area is secured as below-market rental housing. While the AHC policy was closed to new rezoning inquiries after June 30th, 2019, applications received up to June 30th, 2022 could continue to be reviewed and assessed under the AHC policy. This application was submitted March 1st, 2021, and therefore can still be considered today. The intent of the AHC policy is to deliver 100% secured rental housing. Rezoning applications considered under the policy must meet a number of criteria, including fitting contextually with neighboring development and meet location requirements. The subject site, represented with a yellow star on the map, is located on Main Street Arterial and within 500 meters of a local shopping area where 6-story buildings may be considered. The AHC policy allows for a maximum of 2 projects within 10 blocks along an arterial. No other AHC projects have been considered within 10 blocks of this site, and there are currently 4 in-stream AHC applications remaining. The application was submitted on March 1st, 2021, with revised plans submitted July 25th, 2022. It proposes 131 secured market rental units and commercial space in 2 6-story buildings. The building height is 20.3 meters, and it has a density of 3.62 floor space ratio, with a floor area of 9,695 square meters. Parking is accessed off the rear lane and is being provided as per the parking bylaw. This slide demonstrates a comparison between market rental and home ownership costs for housing in Vancouver's east side. The green box on the left shows the average market rent for newer buildings in the east side, with average household income served. The orange box on the right shows the average monthly cost per unit type that is associated with home ownership and the average household income served. With respect to proposed market rental units, these would be secured through a housing agreement prohibiting the stratification of units. The applicant is not taking the DCL waiver. Following submission of the rezoning application, a city-hosted virtual open house was held from June 7th to June 27th, 2021 on the Shape Your City platform. The application drawings and details were made available online following application submission, along with staff contact information and a form to submit feedback. In total, we received approximately 512 pieces of feedback. There were also 2 petitions received with 122 and 222 signatures. We heard a variety of comments throughout the review of this application. Key themes of support included the provision of affordable rental housing, childcare, as well as building height, massing, and fit with neighborhood context. To note, the revised proposal received in July 2022 removed the private childcare facility because it did not meet design and operating requirements. Comments of concern related to the height, massing, density, and fit with neighborhood context, as well as traffic and safety issues, the number of parking spaces proposed, shadow impacts, and opposition to additional retail space in the neighborhood. A six-story height and design align with the Affordable Housing Choices Policy. Under the newly adopted SRP, a height of up to 6 stories could also be considered at this location. The applicant has stepped back the upper stories from the floors below to reduce the appearance of the massing and help minimize overlook and shadows on neighboring properties nearby the site. Finding available rental units is a challenge across the city, and there continues to be a significant need for secured, purpose-built rental housing options. The commercial use will provide opportunities for new businesses and employment and connect with commercial areas further north and south along Main Street. Under the Community Amenity Contributions Policy for rezoning, lower density secured market rental applications within the RT zones proposing more than 5 stories are required to include a financial statement for the city's review to assess the value of the project and determine if additional land lift has been created. The performer for this project has been reviewed by the city's real estate division, who concluded there is a land lift being generated through this application. The applicant is contributing 131 secured rental units, paying a cash CAC of $610,000, which is intended to be allocated to support delivery of public benefits in and around the Sunset community area. The applicant is also contributing approximately $206,000 towards public art and will be paying approximately $3,248,000 in development cost levies. In summary, staff recommends approval of this application to rezone 208 East 54th Avenue, 7018 to 7078 Main Street, and 211 East 55th Avenue from RT2 to CD1, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B of the report, as it meets the intent of the AHC policy. If approved, the application would contribute 131 new secured rental units, as well as financial contributions valued at approximately $4,065,300. This concludes my presentation. Both staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the applicant team here to speak to it? Okay. Okay, so questions from council. We'll go to Councillor Dominato first.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the presentation. I'm just wondering if you or the applicant can expand on the limitations related to childcare. I think you referenced that that a proposed childcare wasn't able to meet design and operating guidelines, and I'm just curious about that in light of the immense need we have for added childcare in the city, and could that not have been worked out in some way? What was the limitation? Was it on our part? Was it our guidelines? Or was it some other matter with respect to the design of the building?
Just want to clarify, is that a question for staff or the applicant?
I guess whoever can address it is, why can't childcare go in here is the question. What was the barrier?
I'll let the applicant respond to that.
Yeah, hello, it's Mike Redmond. I'm the Senior Development Manager for Alliance Partners. We did consider it, and in our consideration, we were looking at the siting of the building. The guidelines that stipulate the amount of outdoor space and parking and drop off were not conducive to the site. It was too hard to accommodate on the site. Part of that was also to do with the amount of daylight that the outdoor space required and the amount of time there needs to be sun on that space, which made the aspect of the building, it was limited in where we could put that space.
Thanks for that. And sorry, I didn't realize you're online there. Just a follow-up question then to you is, and I don't know if staff will be able to address this, is that we've had successful partnerships of putting childcare on rooftops of schools. Was that not a consideration, or is that something that needs to maybe be proposed as part of the guidelines coming back on childcare? It addresses daylight, but it has worked quite successfully with schools.
Sorry, Councillor Dominato, are you?
Sorry, was that addressed to the applicant or to staff? Pardon me.
Maybe I'll just address it to the applicant then, was that a consideration or part of the discussion was the possibility of rooftop childcare? You could have a separate entrance to the building, have it on the top of the building, just like we do with schools.
Yeah, and it was. I think part of the issue was also the drop off in parking locations as well as the outdoor space. We did look at that, and again, it just was not conducive to the siting of this building.
Okay. I think there's a bigger conversation we have to have, and I know staff are reporting back on, I know it's not time for comment. I'll pause there and I'll make some comments later.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Dominato. And we just need to take a brief recess here for a minute. I unfortunately forgot to ask the applicant if they wanted to present, so apologies about that. So just take a recess here for a minute. Okay, thanks for your patience. We'll continue with questions and then we'll circle back with the applicant around their presentation. So Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, just a quick question, and that is with respect to the comment around the DCLs and fees raised, that you said that they are specifically area, or they'll be designated to the South Vancouver area. Did I hear correctly?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Oh, sure. Was that the applicant speaking?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that the fees that are, the DCLs, et cetera, that are raised, that those are, that I heard staff correctly, that those are to be allocated specifically within the South Vancouver area?
Yes, it is intended to be within the Sunset community area.
Okay, and following up on that, is this, am I correct that we often hear from this neighborhood that we're underinvested in infrastructure and amenities, probably because there isn't a lot of development here, and so that this actually, having this development, these additional homes will actually enable delivery of, or a contribution towards some community amenities?
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
Okay, and are they, do we have any knowledge or understanding at this point what they might be directed towards?
They're not slated towards a particular project at this point in time, but they do tend to go towards active projects that are under review.
Okay. Are you able to advise of any of those that they might qualify for at this point? And if you can't, that's fine. But I'm just wondering, like, for example, I know the Sunset Senior Center is a project that's contemplated. There's funding from other levels of government. Do we have any sense of what they might go towards?
We don't have the full list, but we know that the senior center is certainly an objective for this area, and so this project would help contribute towards that.
It would? Yep. Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Montague.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick question, I guess, to the applicant. I notice the application calls for commercial commercial retail space at grade. We've heard how important that is in neighborhoods, and I'm just wondering if there's what sort of commercial retail is anticipated, if any, or are you targeting specific commercial retail?
We have considered that. I think our intent is to engage local businesses and find the appropriate local businesses that will fit that location.
Nothing specific, though.
Nothing specific, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Okay, we'll now see if we can have the applicant present their presentation that we inadvertently missed earlier.
No problem. Hey, first of all, just good evening. My name is Mike Redmond. I am the Senior Development Manager at Alliance Partners. I'm here with Matthew Cheng of Matthew Cheng Architects to answer any questions you might have. First off, a quick thank you to all the city staff for their hard work on this application to date. And as well, a thank you to Council for allowing our project to be put forward and for your consideration this evening. Alliance Partners, we've been committed to the growth of the rental housing stock in Vancouver since about 2019. Specific to this project, we have spent time engaging the neighbors to understand neighborhood priorities. We're intending to make sure that our project responds to the community. And that was mentioned by Carly in our previous engagement, public engagement. I won't take up any more of your time. I'll let Matthew Cheng speak to the project itself. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Chang, and I'm the architect for this project.
Hey, Matthew, is it possible for you to adjust your microphone or get closer to it? It's a little hard to hear you.
Is it better now?
A little bit.
Okay.
Can you get closer?
Hello, hello.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's see.
Okay. Okay. Good evening. My name is Matthew Chang, and I'm the architect for this project. In a meeting with neighbors, we heard concern about overlooking, privacy, building massing, and treatment of lane. A number of changes have been made that takes this feedback into account. To reduce building mass and improve privacy to neighbors across the lane, each side of the building have been revised significantly. Setback on level 1 to 4 has been increased to 4.5 meter. Level 5 and 6 has been increased to 6 meter. And the rooftop outdoor amenity space has been increased to 20 meters from the east property line. To further improve privacy to the neighbor, 1.5 meter wide planters will be designed along the east edge of the level 2 patio to keep the residents away, reaching the edge of the patio to overlook the neighbors. Also, translucent glazing is proposed on balustrade on all balconies on the east elevations. The total number of parking space provided for commercial and residential is 101, which fulfills the 99 parking space required based on city parking bylaw without any TDM measures. Traffic consultant will be retained to design the traffic calming system, including speed bumps at the lane. This site is very appropriate for this all rental apartment since it is within walking distance to community center, school, parks, bike route, and frequent transit for sustainable transportation options. On-site, generous indoor amenity space on the second floor and outdoor amenity space on roof are provided. So this is our presentation, and if there's any questions, we are prepared to answer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Matthew. Not seeing any questions from council. It is the only opportunity for council to ask questions directly to the applicant. Just wanted to note that. So if you do have questions, please add yourself to the queue. Okay, not seeing any questions, so we'll now hear from the public. We'll go to speaker number 1, Tenzin Yanki. Do we have?
Yes.
Hi, Tenzin.
Yes,
So you have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
So my name is Tenzin, and I'm a resident in Vancouver, and I'm directly affected by this rezoning. My position this evening, along with neighbors, I have 4 other people here with me, is that we are opposed to this. In spirit and in essence, we firmly endorse and support affordable housing and to address the crisis in Vancouver. However, we are opposed to the CD1 development. Why is there a need for commercial development when 4 blocks north, this is from 49th and 48th included to 52nd and 57th onwards down to Marine Drive. There are so many commercial spaces that are empty and are suffering. They are empty. I urge the council members to actually take a walk around to actually validate this information. Number 2, and this is very important, this was also highlighted by the applicant themselves in the reason why they were unable to meet the requirements for the daycare. It's about the daylight. So we are going to have shadows overcasting east of this development. So all houses down on 54th and 55th will be directly impacted 3 seasons through the year where we will have shadows starting midday. So as you can imagine, in Vancouver, what this is going to do to our health. Okay. Then the other and the most important other concern is about the densification. So the depth of the lot is only 110 feet. And there's a proposal of 131 units going to go up. And this is being approved under the AHC policy. My understanding of the policy, it allows only for maximum 2 projects within the 10-kilometer radius. So we have a 6-story commercial type building already, 4 blocks north, the 6505 to 6541 directly to this project, and then down on Marine Drive. So I don't understand how this could meet the requirement. We are asking the council here to take into consideration the removal of any sort of commercial and retail space on the first floor. If we are addressing a housing problem, that's what we should be addressing and not endorsing something that's not required in the Sunset community. I'm also going to raise a concern about the transparency in the process because it started with the engagement piece. All the planners who were assigned to this project is aware about the several concerns we have raised since the beginning around engagement. I'm also very, very concerned about the rigor that's involved in this whole public process. If you look on the dashboard that you can see publicly, it shows only 2 people opposed. I myself, as a resident, have written and then I signed up to speak. I can't see my comments here, so I'm not sure what the barrier is, but certainly us as residents, we have faced several barriers and have had to advocate for access to information and also for transparency throughout the application process from the get-go. That's all. I think I'm at time because I do want to allow others, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there is any questions posed to us from council.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for calling in. And just to confirm, you said that you didn't see the correspondence that you sent in reflected on the website. Is that correct?
Correct. And, as the chair, I just want to highlight this. Even to get the hoarding up to actually allow members of the neighborhood, and we have many senior citizens for whom English won't be a first language, but something like this, it's a visible signage that people can ask each other. Even the signage went up after our request and complaint to both 311 and actual emails to the city planner. So we faced several barriers, and essentially, the reason you have this RT2 zoning is because the depth, think about the depth of the lot. It's only 110 feet.
Okay.
And you are
I
talking
will
about
have to cut you off. I'm very
six-story
sorry.
towers.
You are at time, but we did take your comments, and we'll have someone look into that. So thanks for calling in tonight. Thank you. Okay, we'll now go to speaker number 2, Binu Sahota. Do we have Binu on the phone?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I'm here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Binu Sahota, and I also live in the same neighborhood at the project site that's proposed for rezoning. And just like to thank the opportunity to speak at this public hearing. Just like to share my comments. It's nice to see development and city improvement and increase in housing in Vancouver. However, it would make more sense if it fit with the current demographic and occupancy in the community. I view lots of concerns after this proposal comes into effect. Parking will be huge for our neighborhood. Commercial noise due to truck and retail shops and its residual effects like garbage noise, change in occupancy movement from residential occupancy to commercial occupancy zone, and the unforeseen issues that we fear facing. My concerns are related to safety and noise concerns during demo and during construction, as well as after occupancy. I live right next to the proposed site and hugely concerned about various issues that I fear me and my family will face. We built a house in 2017, 2018, and our house was built with the thermal exclusion with the use of outside foam. I fear grave risk with fire, damage to outside wall and glass during demo and construction. I'm also concerned about height of the building at 66.6 feet. There will need to be deeper digging into the ground, which will impact me directly as being right next to the site, and fear it will affect my foundation and cause serious issues. Not to mention the noise pollution we will have to endure. After COVID-19, I'm also working from home and I have nightmares of how it will continue working during the construction, and after is occupied with commercial occupancy with laden trucks loading and unloading in our alley and the noise that will be caused. I oppose the commercial retail spaces at grade in the residential neighborhood. I fear more cannabis shops opening in the next door. What's the need to build a 6-story building when newer construction in nearby Cambie Corridor or Cambie Street is mostly 4-story buildings? Furthermore, the building height of 66.6 feet will create shadow for the houses on 55th and 54th Avenue lanes. We'll have less sunlight and have no privacy in our spaces as well. So how is the city planning to mitigate these issues? I also oppose the access from our back alley of the 101 vehicle parking spaces. The project's proposed design shows access to the parkade from the back lane of our block 55th Avenue and 54th Avenue, which is a safety concern as more traffic will be directed to a narrow back lane. This will cause our neighborhood have a issue using our back lane for parking our cars in our garages and carports and driveways. And also the back lane is used by the South Vancouver neighborhood to access Sunset Community Center. So these are my concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for calling in tonight, and thanks for sharing your concerns. Seeing no questions, we'll now go to speaker number 3. Speaker number 3, William Ruthman.
Speaker number 3 is not on the line.
Excuse me. Okay, speaker number 4, Inderjeet Sahota. Do we have... Hi, Inderjeet. Yeah, the podium with the mic there. So you have up to 5 minutes, so go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Dear Mayor, City Councillors, and my fellow neighborhood participants. And thank you for the opportunity to speak at this public hearing. So we are aware of the rental crisis in Vancouver as a resident of the city and support the new development that will generate more jobs. But given the size of this project in a dense residential zone, following are our main concerns. And these are collectively agreed by the neighborhood in a signed petition submitted to the city. Number one is this project is incompatible in size with the current homes in the Sunset neighborhood. So rezoning should take into consideration the height of the surrounding buildings, changing from 6-story to 4-story to ensure the adjacent residents' privacy, safety, and security. Number two, the rezoning should take into consideration taking out the commercial retail space. Why? Because as per the design, the project, the entry for the trucks loading and unloading of the goods is via the side alley, which is very narrow. It's just a 12 feet, which I measure. So there is a safety and security issue due to heavy duty trucks traveling via this back lane. And my number 3 point is same. I'm putting this concern for city planning that our home is built in 2018 under the residential zone bylaws by using a thermal exclusion design. So we were not aware of this project about the comprehensive development coming down the road. So due to these loading trucks for the commercial zoning for the retail space, as well as during the construction, made damage to our outer wall as per this the design. So like the seismic waves during the digging or the trucks traveling during that, and all these loadings will be happening in the midnights, early mornings, even for the retail space. That will cause safety and noise pollution for us. My next point is rental only units. Why not a mix? Because I'm wondering that there will be any regulatory bylaw that these rental units will be rented only to Canadian residents. If the building owners rent these units to short-term international travelers like Airbnb in order to generate the revenue, it is going to open a door for drug trafficking, gang violence in our neighborhood. So are these like going to be managed under any strata rules and policies so that we are protected? Not like this rental building is going to be used like a hotel, like, rent to anyone at any time. So to conclude my points, I think we support the project, but we should be reducing the height of this project in order to protect us from 6-story to 4-story row houses or townhouses. Second one is to take the commercial retail shops from here, because so that, this loading of the trucks for the goods at any time it will be happening. They'll be coming in the midnight, they'll be coming early mornings, and we have no say on that. Currently, if you see today, not 2 cars can pass from that side lane. And even we see the garbage trucks, comes every weekly. It's a very hard how they cannot even turn from the back alley in one single swipe. So that's all my points for today. So thank you again, dear Mayor and the councillors. We have a full faith in you that you will listen to the residents' concern to mitigate these risks on the design before approving this project as is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming in tonight. Seeing no questions, we'll go to speaker number 5, Al Bisla on the phone.
Hi, can you folks hear me okay?
Yes, we can. So you have up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Paul Bisla. I'm a community advocate and a lifelong resident of South Van. Some of you may know who I am. I want to thank you for attending Wasaki this year, as I was helping support that this year. I also want to acknowledge the previous speakers. It's necessary to hear all sides when it comes to important decisions like this for any community. I'd like to start off by saying that as a lifelong resident, I understand Sunset, the community center where I went to preschool with, the old one, of course, the Punjabi market where I currently volunteer, all of which reside on Musqueam lands. And having this understanding of the lands of where we work and play, I've been able to provide feedback to the developer as well. For almost 2 years now, I've been in contact with the developers right from the beginning. And to me, what that illustrated was that they were invested in listening to the community. Okay. I understand through these recent conversations with the developer that they have addressed the concerns, as you saw in the presentation, some of the concerns, through that presentation. The shadowing study was also concerning for me. Even though I'm not a resident of that immediate block, I live a few blocks down, that's always a concern. But they've addressed that with setback. When it came to things like other concerns, they reduced the FSR to accommodate any other concerns that they that residents had as well when it came to size of the project, when it came to congestion and things of that sort. And again, through these conversations, what's really important from myself, my family, my friends, is recognition and preservation of our culture and our cultural history, of Southland. And we've been doing that work through the Punjabi Market Collective, paying homage to our cultural history. And the developer has committed to continuing that work with this project as well, which is supportive of the work we're trying to do already, which is great. The other aspect of PMC's mandate is to facilitate supports for the mom and pop shops that exist in the Punjabi market, just a few blocks north. And by bridging that retail space gap between 51st and 56th, I feel, and my colleagues feel, would be instrumental in revitalizing that business district, because we actually have enough retail space to initiate a viable business improvement association, which has lacked in that space, which has been one of the reasons we feel that the businesses have declined, that and services and demands. And we're hopeful that we can, through that retail space, we can establish a viable BIA. But of course, the biggest asset to this project is the housing that it provides. We all know that housing is challenging in the city of Vancouver, as the previous speaker noted. And rental housing is a type of housing, that we need, because it removes the barriers for those who cannot afford to buy. In addition to that, that rental housing, working with the good PR firm that the developer is working with, Pumigu, we are trying to facilitate and ensure that seniors from the community get first right of refusal. That will be also very helpful for our community in Southland, the South Asian community particularly. And for these aforementioned reasons, I support this project. But before I leave the call, I have two questions for the developer, because I'd like to kind of ask for clarity and for supports for Southland. How will the developer take into consideration the cost of living, when determining rental rates? So that's my first question. And my second question, it's for staff or the developer, is would you be able to consider renting to folks in the neighborhood, who live and work in the neighborhood, for example, teachers? So thank you for committing to the right of first refusal for South Asian seniors. Are you also able to support workers and in a way that takes into consideration living wages? If I still have some time, I just wanted to add to
Paul,
that list
I'm sorry, I got to
Councillor.
cut you off, but
No problem.
you do have questions from Councillor her, oh no, she's removed herself from the queue. And you were asking some questions of staff and the developer, but unfortunately, we can't relay those questions in this process. It's not the right time, unfortunately, but appreciate you calling in tonight, and nice to hear from you. Okay, we'll move to speaker number 6, Maninder Gill, in person. Yep. Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
You have up to 5 minutes, please.
I thought it was 8.
Are you on behalf of delegation?
Yeah, there's 3 houses that I'm representing. Or I could stick with 5, it's fine.
I believe they have to be present.
Okay, that's fine. We'll stick with
so
5.
You'll
It's
just
fine.
have the
Yeah,
5
5's
minutes.
fine. Hi, my name is Maninder Gill. I live at 261 East 55. I'm actually 6 houses down from where this project's going to be taking place. Just a little bit about me. I'm born and raised in Vancouver in this area, 42 years in total. I was walking one day and I saw a big sign. Caught to my amazement what's going on here, and read it a little bit in detail. Asked some neighbors, and I actually have a friend that used to live on that property area. And I inquired with him, hey, I'm like, you're leaving the area? He's like, yeah, I am. We sold our house. So here we are. I'm not opposed to this project, even though on, the fact that I live in Vancouver, I know we have a little bit of a crisis with housing and affordability. I'm all for it, but I am a little bit concerned on how we're kind of going about getting this project moving forward. We had a workshop last year. I did bring up the concern that the signage wasn't in different languages. I did speak to some friends, community partners. Paul's one of them who's on this call. Spoke to some lawyers, and I said, like, how do we get our voices heard? There are a lot of neighbors that are on this call today that don't like the way this is all playing out. Long story short, we had a workshop and we brought all these concerns forward. I didn't feel like that workshop led to anything, or it led to anywhere in regards to our concerns. It didn't look like there was an appetite to listen to anything. There was a daycare that was presented in this, and today I heard that it's not going through because of some daylight. I'm not sure what that means. But anyhow, we did do a canvas around the neighborhood, and I blitzed the neighborhood, and I think got 200 signatures around my area. And all I did was just ask individuals, how do they feel about this project? And there's a lot of first generation, second generation, third generation individuals that live there that oppose this. Just the fact of the sheer size of this project, 2 big buildings in a small Sunset Community Center neighborhood where I grew up. And you're going to basically have an alley that leads to a parkade where kids bike, and you're going to have cars that are probably just going to be flooring into that parkade when they feel like it. It is a little bit concerning, and I don't have any plans on leaving Vancouver. I do hope to retire in the city. My wife is a member with the Vancouver Police. My parents have worked for the city as well. This is where we want to be, and we're all for this project. But if we could just listen to some of my concerns and maybe review this project, please consider, making this maybe not a rental. One building being a rental and one being sold, because affordability, people do want to own their own place. Let's not set a huge precedence, because Main Street is a nice street. It is a main street. Let's have more of these types of buildings, but maybe not 6 stories or 7 stories. If we can maybe consider like 3, 4, or even 5. Because I did go for a run towards Oak Ridge Mall, where it's going through some big development, and it was like 4 p.m. and I swear it felt like it was 8 p.m. because of the way that building was going up. So it is scary to see some big developments going in and putting an overshadow on our neighborhood. And just raising awareness with rental does come with, the stigma of you might see a lot of turnover with renters. It might be setting a precedence where you might see more rental units being built around the neighborhood. The community, I was part of the Sunset Community Center Association, and I never, during my time, ever heard about this project being part of the senior center. Never even got wind of it. So it would be nice to maybe have some part of this, because the only reason why I joined the association was to get that senior center moving forward. Last but not least, the Punjabi market. It's got some empty shops. 57th and Main has got some empty shops, and you're putting a commercial building in the middle of Smack Center Sunset. I don't think we need that. I think that bottom floor, if you can just skip the commercial and make it residential or rental, that'll be sweet. Again, no to commercial. And last but not least, just the entrance to the parkade. If we could avoid it being in that alley and it could just be on 54th or 55th, I'm cool with it. And that's it for me, guys.
Thank you for your comments and thanks for coming in tonight. Speaker number 7 is withdrawn, and speaker number 8, Jazz Sandu, on the phone. Do we have Jazz?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Jazz. So you have up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm a resident of Vancouver, and I've lived in the Sunset community area for pretty much most of my life. I'm opposed to the application in its current form for the following reasons. I think that a project like this does have its place in the Sunset neighborhood and community, but not in this particular location for 3 reasons. The first is that the streets that are adjacent to the 2 buildings, that being 54th and 55th, are your sort of classic narrow East Vancouver streets. And with the amount of parking that's going to be available to the residents, those streets are going to be very congested in the morning time and also evening during the evening rush. And that raises concerns of pedestrian safety and also the safety of vehicles and bicycles. So that's my first concern, and I'm hoping maybe city staff can address whether they've looked into that. Second is there are more suitable locations on Main Street, both north and south of the proposed site. North of the proposed site, from East 52nd to about East 48, is the traditional area known as the Punjabi Market. That's one area where this kind of large project would be more suitable. And south of the proposed site, from around 56th and 57th and Main Street, all the way down to Marine Drive, that's also more suitable. And I say more suitable because they are buildings of this nature, meaning mixed residential or commercial, in those particular areas. So the perfect example is on the corner of 49th and Main Street, there exists a building that is similar to this. And the difference between that building and this proposed site is that that particular building has access to 2 main roads, that being 49th and Main Street. Another example is a rental building on 57th and Fraser. Again, access to 2 main roads, that being East 57th and Fraser Street. And in contrast with this particular proposed site, it's sort of just plunked down in the middle of a very residential area. And I think for that reason, it's just simply not suitable for this particular location. Again, either north or south, a couple blocks would be more suitable. And my third concern is with respect to how this whole rezoning application has gone forward. My understanding is that the applicant, the developers, have already bought the 8 lots for the proposed site, and then they went forward with the rezoning. And as a citizen of Vancouver, the concern I have here is that it's the developer who's choosing where to put these 2 really large buildings instead of the members of the community and the city of Vancouver. And so I'm just wondering why it's not the other way around, meaning that the city of Vancouver and the residents of the Sunset community or other communities throughout the city, why is it not that there's a sort of a pre-existing consultation about where this type of building would be more appropriate, and then some sort of pre-zoning would happen, and then you ask the developers to come in and bid for the project or put forward proposals for a project. And that way, the residents of the various communities, including Sunset and the other communities throughout the city, they at least have some say in terms of how densification in the city is going to happen, and the type of densification that it's going to happen. So those are the three main reasons. And the last thing I'll say is, again, I'm not opposed to this type of building in this neighborhood. Just I'm opposed to this particular location. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for calling in tonight, Jazz. This is now, we've moved through the speakers list, so now we'll do the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream, and any speakers who are in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Clerk, could you check if there's any additional speakers on the line, please?
Speaker with the last 4 digits, 2265. Your
Yes.
line is unmuted. Could you state your name and whether you're a resident of Vancouver? Thank you.
Trevor Lobo, resident of Vancouver, yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, please go ahead. Sorry, I didn't catch your first name. Do you mind repeating that?
Trevor. My name's Trevor.
Okay, thanks very much. So you have up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Sure. Good evening, all. My name is Trevor. I'm a resident and taxpayer of Vancouver City. As a young family member residing in this neighborhood, I oppose to the project as, in my view, the project is a spot rezoning. The Sunset neighborhood offers sufficient commercial space within 10-block radius, both north and south of the proposed project. Affordable housing alternative can also be achieved without having this kind of project, as well as giving a chance for first-time home buyers an opportunity to buy. It's anyways pretty hard to buy a home right now due to the shortage of homes. We all have heard or experienced ourselves bidding wars, higher prices, and worsening affordability. To eliminate this, I would ask the City Council members to consider having to build townhouses or either apartments in this neighborhood rather than having a rental unit or a rental unit proposed. My second point would be traffic congestion. The inner streets surrounding East 54th and 55th Avenue have narrow shoulders and narrow sidewalks. The proposed 131 rental units, along with commercial space, will dramatically increase the traffic flow on these streets. Pedestrians, children, pets, and vehicles all share the roadway, which leads to increased safety concerns as vehicle traffic increases. This is especially concerning on Main Street, where families with strollers and children are regularly walking to Sunset Community Center on the street. Challenge with traffic was also addressed by the applicant earlier during this call, giving reasons as to why did they not have daycare in the building. The third point is the shadow study. The shadow study shows that in the spring, winter, and fall, shadows will hang heavily over East Block. Why would it be acceptable for those of us living in the neighborhood to experience such massive loss of light? Also, as an applicant mentioned, few reasons for not going ahead with the daycare due to daylight is clear case of this height of this building that will create shadows in the neighborhood. These are my main concerns, and I oppose to having such large project in the Sunset community neighborhood. I would strongly recommend looking at affordability for young families to own rather than rent. Me being as a young person and having a family, I would strongly recommend the city to look at an alternative of having
a buying option rather than renting, because renting is a short-term solution, but the long-term solution, if you want people to live in Vancouver City, they would give them a chance to own a property so that they can call it as a home. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thanks very much for calling in tonight. Do we have any other speakers on the line, clerks?
Speaker with the last four digits, 8225. Your line is unmuted.
Hey, good evening. My name is Maria. I'm a resident of Vancouver, and I live on the west side of Maine, so not directly impacted by the proposal here. More of a tangential point here, but I grew up kind of crossing through the Main Street corridor, right where that proposed building is going to be. And I think one of the biggest other side issues here is about traffic and pedestrian access, especially for a neighborhood that has a lot of single-family homes with young families, as also home to an aging population with multi-generational households. So I think regardless of which way the project goes, it'll be really useful considering there's no crosswalks or pedestrian-controlled lights or anything of the sort between 57th and 51st, and to have a new building with increased density on the 54th and 55th Street and 2 bus stops on either side. I've typically sometimes had to wait between 5 to 10 minutes, and I've seen other folks as well, even though it is an unmarked crosswalk, to have it be a long wait with lots of fast-moving cars driving to and from the Main Street sides there. I think the neighbors on this side have petitioned for a crosswalk or a pedestrian light there a couple times, so I just wanted to use this opportunity to reiterate the need to support better pedestrian and transit options through a crosswalk.
Hey, thank you very much for calling in tonight. Okay, we'll now go to our next speaker on the line.
There's no further speakers.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll do the third and final call. So if there's any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#, before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream, and any speakers who are in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. And we'll take a 5-minute recess while we see if anyone else calls in. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, hi, everybody. We are going to get started again. Just hoping that the folks online could please turn on your cameras, just so we can establish quorum. Okay, I understand we have some additional speakers on the line. So let's go to our next speaker on the line, please.
Geeta, your line is unmuted.
Hello, everyone. My name is Geeta. I'm a proud resident of Vancouver for the last 25 plus years, and my two children have also grown up going to John Henderson School. I'm opposed to this project from the beginning because it is two tall buildings that is a misfit with the neighborhood we live in. Nobody asked us. We just saw a sign, no message from the city in the postcard. Then my neighbors told us about this. We went to several houses to ask their opinions, and we have signed a petition as a group and submitted it to the city council. We have so many shops that are empty in 49th Street, in 57th Street, and we don't need another empty shop. I am the second house from the project, and the information on the website tells us that there will be shadows throughout the day. So I am strongly opposed to this project. And also, why is there balcony facing into our backyard? I am urging the city council to please review this proposal and not change from our residential zone to commercial. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Geeta, for calling in tonight. We will now go to our next speaker on the line. Just a moment.
Mandeep, your line is unmuted. Can you please also state your last name? Thank you.
Oh, sure. My name is Mandeep Saran, and I live in the immediate block on 54th Avenue from this proposed project. So on our block, we have 3 families with children under the age of about 8. And we have a daycare, 3 home daycares on 55th, a little bit further down the street on 54th, as well as the daycare and preschool at the community center. There's also a school, Henderson. So lots of children in this neighborhood. And my concern is for safety. I am opposed to this project because I think that it's going to bring too much traffic into the area, which was a residential area. Currently, my 6 and 7-year-old ride their bikes outside. They play catch outside. And, growing up in a city, a bigger city, I did grow up in in a small town where we were allowed to play independently without supervision. And I feel we have this kind of oasis in the city where the families on this block do feel like our kids can play in the front yard, safely. And I'm concerned with the amount of traffic, the amount of people that will be in this area. And I think that one of the barriers to housing in the city has been not enough densification in some areas, especially with detached housing. But I don't know if council members realize that a lot of the houses that are detached don't actually just have a single family. Some are multi-generational. Some have lots of primary and secondary suites. There's a lot of laneway houses as well. And currently on our actual block, we had a duplex go up, which also has a rental suite. So there's actually 4 families living in that one property. So we have densified, we have increased, and I think that, we've adjusted. The other concern that I have is the amount of parking spots. My understanding from the developer was I think there were 101 parking spots, and I could stand to be corrected, but 100 residential units. So that's maybe 1 spot per unit. But what about all the couples that are working? They have 2 cars. All those cars are just going to go down our streets. And what ends up happening is the residential houses here, there's already conflict sometimes because of the duplex that's gone up and the secondary suites. There can be upwards of 3 or 4 cars per home. And of course, each house has a detached garage for the primary owner or, kind of the person who lives in the main dwelling, but the secondary suites, primary suites, laneway houses all park on the street. So we have noticed that with the duplex being built, there's not as much space, and people are parking in front of fire hydrants. They're parking very close to stop signs where visibility is less. And I already have concerns with, my kids being able to cross the street to get to the community center safely or to the park safely. And I think with this increased densification, the parking spots are not adequate to support the residents and the commercial. And I do also have concerns about the alley. All the houses along 54th and 45th use that alley. And again, as one caller mentioned, concerns about pedestrian access for the seniors as well. Thank you very much for your time and for listening to my concerns.
Great. Thank you very much for calling in tonight. We'll now go to our next speaker on the line. Do we have any speakers on the line?
Hello, speaker with the last 4 digits 7072. Your line is unmuted. Can you please state your first and last name?
My name is Frida Jung. I am within a half block of this very, very large development, and I'm opposed to the development. I'm not opposed to increasing rental housing in Vancouver. It's just that this is very, very large. This is different from the building that's 6 stories high on 49th, which has a parking lot behind it, so that the people that live behind that would be impacted, like ourselves. It's taking up too much space. So that means the alley becomes a street in essence. And for small children that live on our block, that's going to be dangerous. The other thing is, realistically, 101 parking spots for 131 secured rental units. Realistically, that is not even going to cover. Most of the people that are going to be able to afford are at least couples with families and potentially multiple people living in them. We already have, as the last speaker said, we already have parking issues already because generally almost all of the houses in this area have at least minimum secondary suite. Some of them there are 3 sets of families that in there. So you can imagine the number of car traffic we have in the area. The height is a problem because the alley behind is quite narrow. And this means that I just don't understand why you would be considering it at a minimum of a height of that size. It will change incredibly the neighborhood. This is going to make this be so much traffic coming through our whole area. If you can make it a shorter profile with it not to be as deep in the back, that's something I would like the council to consider. And it just seems that the east side of Vancouver always is the brunt of all the rental housing. But then once you get over to the west side, then it's no, no, no. So I just don't really care for that. Our family has been here for well over 20 years, and there's a lot of older seniors in the neighborhood. I'm just wondering why there are, the bike spaces, you're appealing to a particular clientele, and it's not going to be seniors. It's not going to be people with large families, because you know what? You can't ride transit if you want your children to play hockey. It just isn't. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you for calling in tonight. We'll now go to our next speaker on the line.
Hello.
Hi, speaker with the last 4 digits 3868. Please state your first and last name.
Yes, I'm Elliot Funt. I was kind of hearing some of the concerns that a whole bunch of other people have, and I have to say I am very much in support of a development like this. There's a number of different spots in the city that make sense for developments like this, and I think that Main Street is really one of them. I hear that there's various different concerns about parking, especially on-street parking, and in fact, I would just suggest to maybe dig a little deeper and add a few more stalls rather than have, that might alleviate some of the concerns regarding parking on the street. But overall, I don't think this is a reason that really a development should be not approved. There's not that much room downtown as it is, and a whole bunch of the various different developments, whether it's along Oak, Canby, Granville, are all pretty large and very similar size as this. So I think that along Main Street, and there are already some on Main Street and a few on Fraser even, that are this size. And so I'm full support. I think it just kind of makes sense with what's been generally along these main corridors, and Main is one of the main corridors for the city. So I think that it makes a whole lot of sense. So thank you very much.
Hey, thank you very much for calling in tonight. We'll now go to our next speaker on the line.
Speaker with the last four digits 1172. Please state your first and last name.
Michael Bowie.
Hey, Michael, you have up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So I'm a resident of the neighborhood of the property in question that is up for development. My main concern with this would be the commercial aspect of the development. I understand that Main Street is well known for having a big commercial presence. However, I've lived in this neighborhood all my life, so almost 4 decades. And I can tell you with certainty that the specific area in question that the commercial is looking to come up in, it's surrounded by commercial that just has collapsed, has been dwindled. There's been no activity and no actual presence. So I don't see the point in introducing more commercial into a space that already has commercial but has failed tremendously. So I'm really firmly opposed to this project, and I would like it to remain residential focused. So having, units is, in my opinion, acceptable, but commercial presence is without a doubt, you wouldn't throw more dollars down the drain in an area that's just not receiving the commercial properly. So for those reasons, I'm firmly opposed to the project as a whole, but specifically the commercial is my big sticking point. And I do understand, parking seems to be the hot topic. Parking is really difficult to access, and I don't think that unless they were to add several more hundred spots, it's unrealistic for any of those units to have enough sufficient parking to service the whole building, let alone the visitors that would attend that building or the visitors that would attend potential commercial spots that would open up as a result. And so for those reasons, I oppose the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for calling in tonight. Clerk, do we have anyone else on the line?
Speaker with the last four digits 7828. You are unmuted. Please state your first and last name.
Hi, my first name is Jeff. Last name is Gill, and I do oppose this development. I'm just echoing what everyone else has said already, and that is, like the last caller said, it's a commercially dead area. The Punjabi market has gone down. It's not being revitalized with all the efforts that have been made in the recent past, and putting more commercial into a residentially strong area just does not, it's going to fail. It won't work. And parking in terms of the number of suites that are going to be in the building, and we can safely say 1 to 2 cars per family at least will be definitely that will belong to each suite. The numbers just don't add up. On top of that, third point is the traffic. If we do even manage to find all that space to accommodate vehicles, even if it's 1 per family, it's going to increase the traffic in this area significantly, where we are already struggling due to basements and multiple families living in a house and laneway homes, and just accommodating 5 to 6 vehicles already per household. And adding on top of that, this whole entire development. It's going to condense it quite a bit. And I also have 2 small children, and I just don't feel that it's safe for them to be able to ride their bike now, let alone when that development comes up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for calling in tonight. Do we have any other speakers on the line?
There are no other speakers on the line.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm on the 3rd call for speakers, I believe. I've done the 3rd call. Apologies. Okay, so seeing there's no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And seeing there are little or no comments received after 5 p.m., I am now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments?
No, we don't at this time.
Okay, thank you. And do staff have any closing comments?
No, we do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for staff? Okay. Oh, Councillor Kirby-Young, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a quick question. I know I've heard a lot of callers express concerns about the parking and a perception of traffic. It's not going to be sufficient. I know this is proposed as 68 spots specifically for the residents for the 131 units. I wonder if you can advise, based on other similar scale rental projects that have come forward, if generally speaking, we're hearing that not all of the residents or people that are renting tend to necessarily have vehicles, and if there is a rationale as to why 68 spaces for 131, is it typically based when you're working with proponents on projects like this on their estimate of how many spaces are needed to support residents with their vehicles?
Thank you for your question. I'll turn it over to my colleague Rosemary to respond.
Thank you, Carly, and thank you, Council, for the question. When we look at parking requirements, we look at compliance with the parking bylaw. Parking bylaw rates are generally set in accordance with, by looking at things like the land use and the residential tenure and historical, things like historical vehicle ownership, as well as kind of goals that the city has for sustainability and whatnot. So when we look at this application, we'll look at things like how well it's cited to encourage reduced vehicle and parking demand. So for example, as my colleague Carly mentioned, this site's well cited to encourage reduced demand because they are so close proximity to transit and the cycling network and things like that. We also do support lower base vehicle parking requirements for different residential tenures to allow the flexibility for developments to provide parking based on what they anticipate their market demand to be. And that's appropriate because it reduces expenses and subsequent housing costs related to requiring excessive amounts of parking.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Just to zero in on time, and reflect one thing back that I heard you say, is that the market is typically, notwithstanding the bylaws and regulations that we have, the market's also typically planning for spaces that they think will match the demand. Is that correct? That's what I'm trying to get at here, is that you don't usually have project proponents building something if they don't think people are going to want it because they all need parking spaces, for example.
Yeah, that's correct. So we typically see developments and developers, match their own market demand, and we see that on various sites. Either they're kind of at the parking bylaw minimums, or they will also choose to provide excess amounts of parking if they think it's appropriate. So we do see kind of a scale, and developers choose to meet what they anticipate their needs to be.
Okay, and then there's commercial spaces also, 33 proposed here. Sometimes when there's more development in an area, there's other options to manage and support existing neighbors, like permit-only parking. I don't know, is there permit-only parking here, or if that became an issue, would that be a potential option in future if the 33 commercial spaces, for example, if they're feeling there's pressure on those and it's placing pressure on the residents' own parking?
Yes, definitely, exactly. So there is currently unregulated street parking kind of along the frontages of this site, but exploring street parking permit regulations is always an option. Residents can call into the city via 311 for the city to kind of explore those permit options. And I do believe we do have one in-stream request that came in shortly after this application was made public through the notification. So staff are already exploring potential requirements or interest in permit parking in this area.
Okay, so it protects that option for folks that may need to park near their home and don't have an off-street option. Okay, that's helpful context. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just hoping to ask of staff, the DCLs connected to this project, would they, would any of that money, for example, be available to improve pedestrian safety, or curb bulges, or a crosswalk across Main Street here? I know there's a long stretch there where it's hard and unsafe to cross Main Street, and we're certainly hearing about traffic concerns. Is that something that would be eligible as a use for that DCL funding?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Boyle. It's Rosemary Draskevich, Senior Transportation Engineer again. I won't speak to the DCL funding, but I will speak to direct conditions that are identified in Appendix B for this applicant. So they are conditioned to be providing kind of a suite of transportation improvements. That does include full public realm upgrades along all of the site frontages, so widened sidewalks, street trees where space permits, curb bulge, curb ramps, as well as a new pedestrian and cyclist actuated signal at Main Street and 54th, which I do note that there were a number of concerns cited by the speaker. So they are being required to provide this as part of their application, and that'll be provided for occupancy.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And related, are there, sorry if I'm missing this noted in the appendix, are there speed bumps or other infrastructure to slow down traffic in the laneway for access to the parking garage?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a number of laneway improvements as well. So that includes upgraded lighting, speed humps is one, as well as surface repaving, as well as they're being required to underground third-party utilities, which will also help the flow and the movement in the lane with the traffic calming. So safe, slow movement in the lane.
Okay, great. Appreciate hearing that. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dominato.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't think I'll be able to ask this of the applicant now, but I think maybe I can direct it to staff. It was just that we did have a speaker, Paul Beasel, who called in, and he was specifically, I know he can't ask the question, but it was framing a question around the opportunity for seniors from the South Asian community, as well as rental housing for workforce housing in particular. And I'm just wondering if staff could comment on that. It's obviously secure rental, but do you have any knowledge of from around the developer targeting that rental housing for specific groups like seniors in the neighborhood, or workforce type housing for, I think Paul mentioned teachers and so on?
I'll turn it over to my colleague Emily Brooker to respond. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, as a market rental project, it's really up to the applicant to choose tenants. So although that's something that they're open to explore, it's not something that we would require them to do, but we would say that, yeah, they are open to exploring, kind of looking into selecting local people or as tenants in the community. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Dominato. Just learning that council just received 9 comments that were received back in April before the item was posted to the public agenda. So just suggesting that council take a quick 4-minute recess to review the comments before moving the motion. So we'll come back at 9:20. Thanks.
And all the Okay. The applicant, they can come back.
Okay, okay. Do you
Okay, thanks, everybody. Thanks for your patience. So we did review that correspondence that came in, as I mentioned. We all received that via email and did review it. So we will now move on to the decision. So do we have a mover for the recommend? Oh, apologies, we lost quorum. Anybody who's on video, if you don't mind turning your video back on, just so we can reestablish quorum, please. We're good to go. Okay. So do we have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Kirby-Young, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Dominato, thank you. Is there any debate? Okay, not seeing any debate. Just a reminder to any council member participating virtually, please ensure your video is on, otherwise you'll be marked. Oh, we have Councillor Boyle for debate. Councillor Boyle, please go ahead.
Thanks. I'll be really brief. I just wanted to particularly name an appreciation for the proponent working with the Punjabi Market Society. There's such great work happening in that neighborhood that I'm glad to see connected to this project, because unfortunately we've seen a number of redevelopment proposals in the area that haven't understood and the important cultural significance of particularly that commercial stretch. And so I'm really glad to see those conversations happening here, and hope to see in the project that connection be realized in terms of tenants, residential tenants, commercial tenants, and more. I also was really appreciative of hearing from staff a number of the transportation concerns that neighbors have raised being included in terms of improvements that the project will be required to make around safer crossing on Main Street and slowing of traffic in the alley and otherwise. So certainly recognize the balance of changes and the need across the city and in every neighborhood to see more rental housing built. So we'll be supporting this, and I'll leave it there.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Klassen.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to respond. I heard lots of different comments from the community today, and I certainly want to acknowledge some of their concerns. I'm going to just, and they don't really need to hear too much from me per se on my own experience here, but I live in the Fraser Street community that I consider very similar and very connected to our neighbors just a little bit further west on Main Street. And I've seen some of the changes that we've gone through in our community, and a similar anxiety around the building form, a little bit more density, concerns around traffic. And it has, I think, been able, with the support of the community, to allow us to address and kind of mitigate some of those concerns. I know that that part of Main Street, and we were just down there for the Baisakhi parade and sort of and connecting with people in the community, that it is an evolving community. It's really exciting to see the Punjabi market really kind of come back to life and new energy, and people like Pal Beasley have done great work there to make that happen. So I will be supporting this, but I do want to commit to the fact that we're always here to hear from the community concerns. And when we're out there knocking on doors last summer, we talked to a lot of folks in the community. I want to make sure that they know that they always have the ability to talk to council and hear and allow us to hear their concerns. And so if there are concerns necessarily around traffic, pedestrian safety, and so on, and parking, to by all means reach out to us. But let's try and make this project work and work with the community together to make that a success. So thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Dominato.
Thank you, Chair. And like my colleagues, Councillors Boyle and Klassen, I'm going to echo some thanks to the residents who came in person. I know some of you are still here, and also those who phoned in this evening. I think it's an important conversation as our neighborhoods evolve. I don't live in South Vancouver, but I do live in East Vancouver. And similarly, we're seeing an evolving neighborhood, particularly on our major arterials, with additional rental being proposed, similar in style to this in terms of height, density, and number of units. And residents are bringing forward legitimate concerns about, well, what will that mean for the community? Impacts about moving around in terms of, whether it be traffic, parking, pedestrian, cyclist safety. But I also want to just reflect that, as our neighborhoods are evolving, it is to be responsive to the need for much needed housing, as we heard from the report earlier today from our general manager of planning around the changes, the anticipation of immigration to this country, to British Columbia, to Metro Vancouver. But it's also reflective of a need of our existing communities and residents. We have members of our community that want to downsize, and that this rental may allow people to downsize into it. It may also allow the children of residents living in the neighborhood to live in the neighborhood they grew up in and stay close to their parents. We heard also from a number of individuals, Paul Biesla being one, around the gap around retail in the area. So this will include a commercial space. So I think that will add value. The one additional consideration I'll raise, and I know one of the speakers identified this earlier too, is around the childcare. I think that's unfortunate that that the initial proposal was going to include childcare, and that it seemed to be something a lot to do with our guidelines and space, as well as parking requirements, that wasn't able to be accommodated. And I think when our staff come back with those guidelines for our consideration later this year, I think we really need to ask some serious questions about how do we find a way to accommodate childcare in these new housing developments and in creative ways like we have done with schools, for example, as I referenced earlier in my comments. So all I have to say is that also appreciative of hearing from the residents who called in, but I am going to support this project because I do think it addresses a number of priorities in our city. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dominato. Just a reminder, any council member participating virtually, if your video is disabled, you'll be marked absent for the vote pursuant to section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw. And I'm now going to call the vote. Clerk, if you could please take us to the voting screen, and council, if you could please register your vote on the voting panel.
Chair, can I have a vote assist in favor, please? This
Yes,
is Councillor
Joe, I will do that for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. Thanks to everyone who spoke tonight. We'll now go to item 5, CD1 rezoning 1040 to 1080 Barclay Street. Does any member of council wish to declare a conflict of interest on item 5? Okay, not seeing any. The clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Perkins and Will Canada Architects Co. to rezone 1040 to 1080 Barclay Street from RM5B Residential District to CD1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of 2 towers containing 365 strata titled residential units, 9,495.8 square meters of social housing, and 37-space childcare facility in the West Tower, as well as 636 units of secured rental, of which 20% of the floor area will be below market rental units in the East Tower. Building heights of 167.6 meters and a floor space ratio of 20.7 and 25.0 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendations. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing. 20 pieces of correspondence in support, 2 pieces of correspondence opposed, and 1 piece of correspondence dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610. followed by participant code 1061445#, before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers who are here in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. And we do have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tess Monroe, and I'm the rezoning planner for this application. The site, shown outlined in red, is located on the southeast corner of Barclay and Thurlow Streets in the West End neighborhood. The area is well served with parks, public transit, bike routes, community facilities, including Gordon Neighborhood House and existing childcare centers. The area is undergoing significant change, with surrounding properties either developed or under development for a range of building heights and uses. The site under consideration is comprised of 4 RM5B zone lots and is currently developed with 4 rental buildings, which have 60 rental units eligible for tenant protection per the city's criteria. The application is subject to 4 policies, and I'll go through each of these in turn. First, we have the West End Plan, adopted in 2013, and that guides change over the next 30 years. The plan identifies villages, neighborhoods, and corridors. It locates additional density along the perimeter of the West End in the Georgia and Burrard corridors, with clear criteria for redevelopment, including height limits, while maintaining sunlight onto open spaces. Second, the accompanying rezoning policy reinforces the plan's direction. Specifically, rezoning can be considered in Area D of the Burrard corridor if 25% of the floor area is social housing. Building forms are managed by tower thickness and frontages. In 2020, Council approved an alternative to the inclusionary social housing requirement in the Burrard corridor as a temporary program to enable additional rental housing in the West End. This policy was approved by Council in March of this year as a permanent option under the West End rezoning policy. Under this policy, rezoning proposals with 100% secured rental housing can be considered if a minimum of 20% of the residential floor area is secured below market rental. Both the rezoning policy and rental alternative can be considered by the applicant as options for this site. Finally, the higher buildings policy applies to areas of downtown with maximum building heights listed here in black. This site is allowed to go to a height of 550 feet. Buildings in this area may enter into the Queen Elizabeth view cone if a number of criteria are met, including demonstrating architectural creativity and contributing to the downtown skyline, providing significant community benefits, advancing the city's sustainability targets, all while minimizing shadows onto specific streets, parks, and open spaces. In accordance with the policies for this site, this proposal includes 2 towers, one 57-story building and one 60-story building. They are labeled as West Tower and East Tower, respectively. The West Tower is coming in under the rezoning policy for the West End and includes 365 strata-titled units, approximately 99 social housing units, a 37-space childcare facility, and retail space at grade. It includes a height of 550 feet and an FSR of 20.7. The East Tower comes in under the West End rental policy and includes 636 secured rental units, with 20% of the floor area provided as below market rental. A height of 550 feet and an FSR of 25.0 is proposed for the East Tower. The application was submitted in March of 2022 and represents an approximately 13-month review process to public hearing. The rezoning policy for the West End requires that 25% of the floor area in the West Tower be delivered as social housing. The applicant has offered an in-kind CAC consisting of the delivery of social housing representing 23% of the floor area and a purpose-built 37-space childcare facility representing 2% of the floor area. Both the social housing and childcare will be delivered turnkey to the city and operated by nonprofit organizations. While this is a moderately lower percentage of social housing than the policy anticipated, The childcare and social housing combined represent a 25% total floor area for in-kind amenities delivered to the city. There is deficiency of childcare spaces in the West End, and this contribution helps advance the city's childcare targets, and the offering is therefore supported. The West End rental policy allows consideration for 100% rental with 20% below market rental, which is met in the proposal for the East Tower. Deeper affordability of these units is to be achieved with 70% of the below market rental units to be rented at 20% below the CMHC average market rent, and 30% of the below market rental units to be rented at 50% below the CMHC average market rent. Buildings in this location may enter into the Queen Elizabeth View Cone if they meet the criteria set out in the Higher Buildings Policy. The Higher Buildings Policy and the West End Tower Bulletin also require that new development maintain sunlight access onto Nelson Park and Robson Village at key times during the spring and fall equinoxes. The building heights and sculpting of the tower result in a design that complies with these requirements. The proposal also offers several upgrades to the public realm, including a large landscape area between the two towers that is wheelchair accessible and functions as the primary access point to the residential lobbies and the childcare. Staff recommend that a statutory right-of-way, or SRW, be secured here to provide a mid-block pedestrian connection between Barclay Street and Ted North Lane to ensure that it remains accessible to the public. Both buildings also include retail space at grade, which opens onto the plaza. While commercial uses were not required under the plan, the proposed local serving retail supports both the residents in the neighborhood while providing opportunities for further animation of the public realm. The open house generated 88 comments with support for more affordable housing options in the area and support for the childcare and ground floor retail spaces. Main themes of concern generally related to the height of the buildings, potential shadow impacts on Robson Street and Nelson Park, comments around the building design, and excessive number of parking spaces. The total public benefits for this application are valued at over $87 million. The bulk of this includes the turnkey social housing and childcare, which is just over $68 million, along with DCLs and public art. Given the alignment with policy directions, staff recommend the application be approved. The proposal advances the city's mandate to deliver more social and rental housing and childcare spaces in the West End. Staff and the applicant team are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Applicant team is here to, sorry, long day. Is the applicant team here to speak to the application? I do see members of the applicant team. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jeff Skinner. I'm the Senior Vice President of Development with Post Properties. I think staff did a great job of presenting the project, so I'll keep my comments brief. We just wanted to say that we're excited to bring this application forward which will create over 1,100 homes, mixed tenured homes, including 636 purpose-built rental, 99 affordable rental with the condo, and over 130 of the purpose-built rental being rented at below market. I'd like to thank staff for their support and work on this application through the application process. We're meeting all policy requirements in the West End Community Plan and other policies, as staff have mentioned. And we intend to move forward, if we're supported, through public hearing this evening as quickly to market as possible to deliver 1,100 units of much-needed housing in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. You do have questions? Actually, Councillor Kirby-Young has questions. I'm not sure to staff or the applicant team. But, go ahead.
It's for the applicant, so perfect timing. I'm looking at the 99 social housing units inclusionary and the valuation of very significant number, 61,400,000. Trying to do some quick math and it's late, so maybe you can help me. What are those units valued at on a sort of a per unit basis?
Can't do that math in my head, I'm sorry.
I know I was trying to get a calculator. It's terrible because my dad said you should be able to do that in your head. Can you speak to, can you speak to sort of the metrics of how that number is arrived at, the 61 million?
Sure, we submitted a CAC CAC pro forma to Real Estate Services. They reviewed CAC pro forma and agreed that the benefits that were being provided, the daycare and the social housing, were taking up any of the lift, additional lift in this case with the condo tower.
Okay, so, right, so I'm getting 620,202 per unit. Maybe staff would like, I can direct the same question to staff. Is that pretty where it netted out on I guess if you're averaging that over the number of units, that's the valuation placed on it?
So we don't have a valuation placed on the per unit, but the real estate services staff have reviewed the applicant's pro forma, and we're absolutely certain that all the additional lift is being captured in the below market.
Maybe I can ask the question a different way.
Okay.
On the slide for public benefits, the
Right.
second to last slide of the presentation, it says that the value of the in-kind social housing specifically and the square footage is 61,400,000. So I take the number of social housing units referenced in the presentation at 99 and just dividing 61 million by the other, I get it $620,202 per unit. So therefore, I'm assuming that is how that valuation.
So I believe Bill Arbage is on the line. Bill, could you address that comment for us? Bill's supposed to be on the line. You jabber him real quick.
Here I am. Hello.
Hi, Bill.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Bill Albay, Development Officer in Real Estate Services. So the process of valuing the in-kind asset is one where we get the pro forma from the applicant, and then we vet it through our own internal quantity surveying team. And so those are cost consultants who are experts in their field in-house, and they provide us with a per foot estimate of what the value of the in-kind amenity is. And so when you multiply that times the number of square feet being delivered, it amounts to approximately $61 million for the social housing.
Okay. So therefore, the per foot cost used was?
So as the director of planning had said, we don't really look at it as a per unit, but your math counselor is pretty good. It's if you were to recalculate it using the number of units as a denominator, you would get something in the low 600,000s per unit.
Okay, thank you. That's
Thank you.
helpful to know. I think I'll leave it there with respects to questions. I do have one though with respects to the DCLs. And is this is an area specific DCL that do these funds stay in the West End? I know that we've moved to more citywide for other areas, but I believe that with the contemplated density, that was part of the West End plan. Can staff just affirm that?
I believe that to be true. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then are these DCLs slated for any particular projects that are under consideration at this point, or has that been determined what they'd be going towards?
We got engineering on the line that can respond to that. Can you respond to that question? Yeah.
It's not directly to DCLs, but we have a number of projects that are currently in the active planning and design phases that get funded through a combination of DCLs and CACs, such as the West End waterfront renewal and expansion, the community center renewal and expansion with library and fire hall, as well as the transportation and public space improvements along the commercial streets and Butte Greenway. So there are a number of projects that get funded through a combination of CACs and DCLs and other funding.
Okay, I'll leave it there because I know it's late. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kirby-Young. I'm just noting the time and wondering if I get a motion from the floor to defer debate decision on this item, as well as item 6 till Thursday at 3. Okay. Moved by Councillor Dominato and seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor, say yay. Yep. Any opposed, say nay.
I'm on the queue for a question for clarification.
Okay. On the motion?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead.
Chair, you said refer debate and decision, but you didn't address speakers, and we do have speakers. So was that intended to include speakers or not?
Include speakers. Sorry, I should have been more clear. But hear the speakers and then defer the debate and decision
So you're
on
suggesting
this item. Yes, that's what I'm proposing. But again, up for discussion.
I'll support that.
Of the motion.
Okay. Need 6 votes. Okay, so should we just do that vote again? Yep. Okay. So just to be clear, we would hear the speakers and we would defer on this item and defer debate and decision till Thursday at 3 p.m. and then also deal with item 6 on Thursday at 3 p.m. So all those in favor say yay. Any opposed? Sorry, Councillor Fry. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that carries. So let's keep going. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, I think I have just 2 quick questions to the applicant team. The first question I have is around the issue of shadowing on some of the public realm features. And I noticed that there was a statement made about how the building was sculpted to limit shadows on Robson. But then I noted in Appendix B in the conditions of approval, something about decreasing building heights to decrease shadowing. So do you have to decrease your heights, or is it just good with the sculpting that you've done?
So we have sculpted the top of the building to accommodate shadow impact on Robson Street. We are able to achieve full height on a portion of the building, and without the appurtenances going above that height.
Okay. Okay, so there may be some decrease, but mostly you're good.
The shadow impact really impacted the design decisions around structural and core that we might normally make, making the building slightly less efficient.
Okay, okay. I'm assuming you can live with that, else you wouldn't be here. Right. Secondly, it talks in the conditions about the green elements of the building, embodied carbon, which is great, and also just sort of generally talks about energy efficiency. What are you doing around that energy reduction or energy efficiency that helps achieve the green building objectives?
Yeah, so under the large sustainable sites development policy, we're taking path B, which in this case, we meet passive house targets for Teddy and Tui, which essentially is meeting the same level of energy as a passive house building.
Right, awesome. It's good to hear. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Councillor Carr. Okay, so not seeing any more questions. We'll now hear from the public. First speaker is Rob Grant. Hi, Rob. Good evening. Sorry to keep you waiting for so long, but you have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Yeah, well, good evening. So my name is Rob Grant. I'm a retired architect and I live in the West End. So the excavation of 4.7 million cubic feet of soil to accommodate 10 stories of underground parking, requiring between 11,000 and 17,000 dump truck loads rumbling across city streets only to be deposited in the Salish Sea off of Point Grey, does not represent a serious strategy to address the affordable housing or climate crisis. If city planners are keen to introduce Manhattan-level densities in Vancouver, perhaps they should consider introducing Manhattan-level parking requirements. In that borough of New York City, new developments require no parking. In fact, depending on the district, only 20 to 35% of proposed units are allowed to have a parking space. In this proposal, 75% of the units have a parking space. Do we need deep basements for tall structures? The super tall Steinway Tower in New York, which at the height of 1,428 feet is the second tallest residential building in the Western Hemisphere and the skinniest in the world, it has a 1.5-story basement. Do we need parking to market residential units? A block away, the BC Hydro building was converted to the electric condominiums, which sold out overnight in spite of the fact it offered no parking. Approximately 20 to 25% of the average cost of new buildings in Vancouver goes to below-grade parking structures. We've had an explosion in the amount of parking being built, including along so-called transit corridors such as Cambie and Broadway. In the past 10 years, this has resulted in about $6 billion worth of parking, or enough to pay for a complete transit line all the way to UBC. Recently, many North American cities, including Canadian cities of Toronto, Montreal, and Edmonton, have taken a free market approach by eliminating parking minimums. In 2015, Calgary City Council unanimously approved a 167-unit condo tower with no parking. This greenest city still maintains an elaborate social assistance program for private automobiles in the form of ever complex regulations and a ballooning bureaucracy. We need to get past opaque bureaucratic processes such as transportation demand management that has produced no reduction in parking here, despite the fact that this site has the highest transit score available. Or technocratic architecture such as this, where huge amounts of CO2 gases will be emitted during construction. We need to get past the false promise of subsidizing electric vehicles, but rather explore tried and true technologies such as automatic parking systems, which are compatible with one of Vancouver's real environmental success stories, car share. We can continue with this absurd paradigm, which works against our goals for affordability and climate change, or you can do the developer and the future occupants of this building a favor. Tell the applicant and city staff to go back and revise the plans to allow for a maximum of 2 floors of underground space, which can be contained within the perimeter of the above-grade building. That way, the developer will save a year in significant costs in excavating, underpinning, and shoring of deep vertical walls and constructing a vast, complicated, and unnecessary concrete catacomb with a huge carbon footprint. Future residents who probably won't even have a driver's license will not have to pay for the lighting and ventilating this parkade 24/7 for the life of the building, nor endure the whooshing sound from the necessary surface vents. The trees planted in the park will be in deep soil, and residents will not have to pay for them to be dug up every 30 to 50 years when the waterproofing membrane over the parkade needs to be replaced. You might even prove a wise young woman named Greta Thunberg wrong when she says, the main problem is that we are not aware of the fact that we are not aware. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming in. Rob, you do have questions. So Rob, I'll get you to come back to the podium. Councillor Carr has questions for you. So please go ahead, Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much. I'm wondering if your notes are in a format that you could actually email them to us in council.
Yeah, I can email to you.
I would really appreciate
Okay.
receiving those by email.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is speaker 2, Corey Colville on the phone. Do we have Corey on the phone?
Hey, what's up, Mayor and Council? I'm a downtown resident, and I'm a big fan of this proposal. I'm fully supportive, and we can't approve this one quick enough. So let me just give a, high five to my neighbor, Rob, on the parking heat. I agree with everything he said. I think that should be reconsidered. The project could save like tens of millions, and think about what that could translate into for affordability, as well as all the carbon stuff. I think that's a great idea, Rob, so hats off, and I really hope that's reconsidered. I know the way like the voting process goes, it's going to be like what was submitted, but I'm going to say there's an opportunity here. Reduce the parking, and I heard some of the resistance points. So we're talking about 550 feet in height, right? What's the difference if we go to 600 feet in height? Another 50 feet. Who cares? Makes no difference. We're worried about the view cone from Queen Elizabeth Park. I go to Queen Elizabeth Park, and let me tell you, you can still see the mountains from pretty much every angle in that park, no matter what. Won't matter if 550 or 600. And Nelson Park shadowing, it has trees. There's trees in the park. The trees provide shadow. It's rainy and dark here for literally 6 months of the year. And Nelson Park, I mean, the biggest problem that you could ask any other downtown resident with Nelson Park has nothing to do with shadows and everything to do with the spillover from the zombie apocalypse that's going on downtown. And the same would go for Robson Street. Shadowing on Robson Street, that's the least of the worries. Also, trees on Robson Street. People love that the trees provide shade. So why don't we try to do a deal? Less parking. Let's go up another, call it 50 feet, 5 more floors. That's the juice. And build a little bit more daycare, build a little bit more social housing. I'm sure there's a deal to be done there. But, you know, this is getting late in the evening, 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. And, you know, I heard, you know, council debating a little bit about whether they're extracting enough of the land lift and talking about the community benefits. And we're casually throwing around numbers in this city. We're talking about $87 million of public benefit that's, you know, vetted with a fulsome quantity surveyed spreadsheet analysis, pro forma appraisal, whatever. I think we're all looking beyond like the most important public benefit in that a full-blown housing crisis, like extreme, like 0.2% vacancy housing crisis, that we're talking about 1,100 homes being built here. And I can say very confidently, this public benefit, this $87 million, if you're worried about like not extracting, if the costs of that project move the wrong way by 5%, if bond yields shift the wrong way by another 50 basis points, there's no profit. I think we got to get serious here and not worry so much about extraction of the full, like theoretical land lift and more focus on the end goal of letting her rip. You know, 1,100 homes. Why can't we fatten up these floor plates by 25% and take that 1,100 homes? Let's get 1,400 homes. Why can't we do that? And this is an example of a project that's like actually high density. 25 times. That's serious. But why can't we make it 27? So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak and hope to bring some energy here late night, 10 o'clock Tuesday. I 100% back this, but do hope, and I mean it seriously, that this could be a fulcrum moment where we reconsider that parking and we get serious about the primary emphasis on growing units and not worrying about shadows and view cones and some arbitrary rule set that between Burrard and Thurlow and between Harrow and like maybe almost Pacific, you can build a little bit higher. Who cares? Let's build. Let's go. The developer wants to take the risk. Let them take the risk. I fully support this, and thank you very much for listening.
Hey, thanks, Corey, for calling in. I appreciate the energy. Okay, speaker 3, Fraser Blanchflower on the phone. Do we have Fraser?
Speaker 3 is not on the line.
Thank you. Speaker 4, Zach Johnson. Have Zach on the phone.
Not on the line.
Thank you. Let's try speaker 5, Andrea Avison.
No.
Not on the line, okay. Speaker 6, Peter Sande. Sand.
Hi, I'm on the line.
Hi, so you have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Hi, Chair Meisner and councilors. So my name's Peter Sande. I live downtown. I'm dialed in tonight to speak in support of this project. So first of all, I'd like to comment on the project location at Barclay and Thurlow. So the West End is one of Vancouver's jewels, basically. It's actually a poster child for densification. At one point, the entire West End was single-family homes, and the entire area was rezoned at one point to allow all sorts of developments to be created. And as part of that, it created one of the best, most affordable and livable neighborhoods in the entire area of Canada. And it's right downtown, yet it feels quiet. It's a beautiful community surrounded by parks and trees. It's close to great restaurants. And most importantly, it feels safe. So much of this housing in the West End, though, now is older and rarely becomes available. And so it's time to reconsider the legacy of the West End and consider new zoning so that we can allow that legacy to continue and to increase the densification in that area. Finding decent, newer housing in this area is not easy. And the best units are always seen to move really quickly, which speaks to the demand for housing here. Housing diversity is also really critical. I think it's great that the developers are proposing to build a full spectrum of housing at Barclay and Thurlow, ranging from condominiums to rental to social housing. The West End has been starved for revitalization. We need to bring it back to its historic kind of roots, and we're now starting to see some of that benefit that's come along with new developments in this area. In addition to providing new, diverse housing, this development will serve to enhance the neighborhood through added retail and improved pedestrian experiences. I'm in full support of this proposal, and thanks for listening, and I hope you consider this new development. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for calling in tonight. Okay, so we're going to go to caller 7, Elizabeth Jarvis on the phone. Do we have Elizabeth?
No, not on the line.
Thank you. Let's try speaker number 8, Mackenzie Oliver.
No, not on the line.
And speaker number 9, Eric Graham, withdrew. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll now do our second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. This number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Clerk, do we have any other speakers on the line?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll now do a third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be tweeted out and made available on the live stream, and any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. And we'll take a quick 5-minute recess to see if any calls come in before we pick this back up. So back in 5 minutes. Oh, we do have quorum. Okay. Okay, we're going to get started again. Just noting we have bare quorum, so those who are online, if you could please keep your video on, I'd much appreciate it. Thank you very much. So we'll go to speakers that are on the line. For our first speaker on the line.
Eric, your line is unmuted.
Thank you.
Hi there. So you have up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Yes, I have two questions, please. I live at 1028 Barclay Street and in the Patina, which is connected to the YMCA, right next to the new project proposed. And the project that's currently being, the Butterfly Building, has been in the process for 3.5 years, and it's not finished yet. So my question is, how many years is it going to take for this proposed project to go through along Barclay Street?
Okay, you're not actually able to ask questions directly to the applicant or staff, but we can always, as counselors, ask those questions. Did you have another question that you were hoping for us to ask?
Yeah, only I agree with the previous speaker about the parking. We need much less parking, not more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for calling in and sharing that. We will go, thank you. Have a good night. Well,
thank you, you too.
Thank you. Go to our next speaker on the line. If you could please state your name, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Hi, this is Fraser Blandflower. I know it's late, so I'll keep my comments to a minimum. I live in Kitts and I work downtown. I don't have a dedicated office space, so I use co-working space in Bentall Center downtown. And I understand that this development proposes to add dedicated co-working space, which is great. I expect that the demand for co-working space will continue to rise post-pandemic. And another element of this proposal that I commend is the variety of housing that's offered. The mix of social housing, rental housing, below-market rental, and condos, I feel will help maintain the West End as a welcoming and inclusive community. The proposal also provides childcare, which is desperately needed throughout the city, and this is well matched with the high ratio of family housing that is offered. I believe that nearing 50% and inclusion of some 4-bedroom homes, which is rare for urban tower living. I know I can't ask a single development to do it all, but I'm pretty sure this project comes close to it. So thank you for your time, and I hope you support this application.
Okay, thank you for calling in. We'll now go to the next speaker on the line. If you could please state your name, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Elliot Funt. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So I live over at 989 Nelson at the Lecture Building, and I'm overall in support of this project. I would like to just point out that we've got, both the Butterfly Building, the Curve Building, and then now this new project, all really within a couple blocks. And, I'm totally in support of that. The biggest issue right now is just with one huge high-rise that we've got up. The traffic management has been really, really poor in this area. In particular, there's been a lot of things that have become bike lanes. Both Comox as well as the Haro are both bike lanes right now. And I think that to alleviate a lot of this congestion, having the developers pay for opening up those streets and then reclosing them off once these projects are complete would be a really good way to alleviate some congestion in this area, because right now it's a total nightmare. And anyway, so that's my main comment. Overall, I'm very supportive of it, especially the rental portion of the project. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks very much for calling in. We'll now go, I believe we have one more speaker on the line. Yep. So please state your name, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Hi, speaker 6799. Hello, last 4 digits 6799. Please state your first and last name.
Hello, counselors. My name is Andrea Avison. I live downtown, and I would like to offer some brief remarks in support of this project. The application before you tonight seems to be a thoughtful housing application that will address many gaps in what is currently available for housing in the area and across the Lower Mainland. I live fairly close by and welcome the new retail and public outdoor spaces that are being proposed here. The daycare that has been proposed within the condo tower is a huge benefit for future residents and for the neighborhood. I'm an auntie of a 2-year-old, and I understand that there is a shortage of daycare spaces in Vancouver, which makes it challenging for people with kids to stay in the city, among other factors. This development offers significant benefits, and I hope you see it move ahead. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks very much for your comments. Clerk, do we have anyone else on the line?
There are no additional callers on the line.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so seeing that as there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And as seen as there are little to or no comments received after 5 p.m., I'm now closing the receipt of public comments. Okay, does the applicant have any closing comments?
We do not. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Do staff have any closing comments?
We do not, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And does council have any questions for staff? Councillor Carr. Oh, I lost you. Sorry. Okay. Okay. That's yeah, we did pass a motion to defer debate and decision to Thursday at 3 p.m. So I guess we wouldn't move the recommendations until Thursday. Is that correct? Clerk? Yep. Okay. We can? Yep. Okay. Okay, let's do that. So you'd like to move the recommendations, Councillor Carr? Can I get a seconder? Councillor Montague? All those in favor say yay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, are we voting on the proposal right now?
Okay. I'll just confer with the clerks on that. Just a moment. Okay, so we have confirmed that process is okay. So we just need a motion to recess until Thursday, 3 p.m. Councillor Montague, can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Dominato, all those in favor say yay. Any opposed say nay. Okay, that carries. This meeting is now recessed till Thursday at 3 p.m. and we'll pick back up with debate and decision. Thank you. And item 6 as well.